ours is a real conversation in some way, and I think when Maureen and Brian present on the budget, definitely have a lot of good conversation and questions about that. And then we'll do the reopening of the schools very briefly and see if you folks have any questions, and then we can go to your agenda.
Okay.
That makes sense?
That's fine. We do have probably one employee of the city regarding the library that will let him know that he might want to grab a quick dinner or take the dog out for a walk. We'll get back to him. But that's okay. It's not a problem.
That'd be great. Like that way we can expedite this.
I guess you don't take a cat out for a walk, but I've never been a cat owner, so I don't know.
Nor have I. So.
Jack.
David LaBeouf takes his cat for walks.
Who does?
I think David LaBeouf does. I've seen him
Really?
about it before.
With a leash?
His cat has a leash. Something, yes.
Well.
Yeah.
Questions? Brian, do you have a question for me?
Yeah, no, actually for AJ, I'm logged in twice. Can you enable the other account to screen share?
Talk to her.
The other Brian? Sure thing.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep, I think I got it.
So just we're missing Diana. Is she trying to get on? Do we know?
I haven't heard from her.
AJ, if Diana needs to come on later, you'll let her in? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for her in the attendee list.
All right. Give Mo and Christian a chance to get back there. And then you'll send us live, right? AJ, that's how you'll do it.
What's that? I'm sorry, Mr. Foley.
You'll call me Jack. You'll tell us when we are live, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think Ms. Biancheri is here now, actually. Yep. All right, I think that is everybody, I think.
All right. Oops, they just left. Give them a minute.
Yeah, this is Diana. Okay.
You did it. All right, you're in.
Jack, what do you want to do about the plan for our reopening? Should we show that to them or just provide it in the chat?
I think you've given it to them. I think if you take about 3 or 4 minutes, Maureen, and just say, this is the plan for next Monday is this. We've given you the detailed are there questions that the councilors may have on their own or the constituents may have asked them?
Okay.
I think something fairly brief on that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Spend more time on the budget. All right.
Oh, boy.
All right. Give people a minute to come back in. We'll start as soon as we can. It goes by record of starting punctually.
I know. Okay, buddy. Okay.
Are you guys ready to get started? I think the chamber is all set.
We are, if the chamber's ready.
Sure. Yeah, I think we can go for it now.
All right.
Council Bergman, I don't know if you want to hit the gavel in, or we can start it that way, perhaps.
Today is April 29th at 5 p.m. This is the Joint Committee on Education. City Councilor Morris Bergman. To my left is at-large Councilor Christian King. To my right is our clerk, A.J. Pottle. And we are doing a joint subcommittee meeting with our educational subcommittee counterparts. And I'll hand my portion of this over to Jack Foley, who chairs that committee.
Great, thank you, Chairman Bergman. And the first thing we have to do, probably on both sides, is to take a roll. So I'd ask Dr. Friel first if she'd take a roll of the school committee members, if you would, please.
Ms. Biancaria? Diana?
No.
Mrs. Clancy?
No, Ms.
Mr. Foley?
Here.
Ms. McCullough?
Here.
Great.
Mr. Monfredo?
Oh, only need the three of us, only the subcommittee, Dr. Friel.
Oh, that's right.
It's right, you got it, no problem, you're good.
Okay.
So we're set. So to you, Chairman Bergman, you want to do a roll call of your subcommittee, and then I'll kick off the agenda?
I will. So I would first, to my left, Vice Chair Councilor King. Are you present?
Yes, I am. Thank
And
you.
Councilor Rosen, are you present?
Well, I'm here, but I'm not present down there.
You're virtually present. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Bergman. We have two items on the joint calendar for tonight. And again, we have at least once or twice a year try to get together with the Finance and Operations Committee from the school committee, with the Education Committee of City Council, and have felt over the past 9 years now that these joint sessions have really helped mutual understanding of the school committee's budget, school committee issues, and enabled the city council to ask us questions directly and for us to talk with the city councilors so that there's a better level of understanding of the challenges we're facing. And since the city is funding a significant portion of our operation as well as our capital budget, it's important that we keep this line of communication open. So there really are two items tonight. One is looking at our fiscal year budget, and the second one is actually looking at our return to school. And we'll start with the budget. It's really the item is 2-19, to consider a communication from the city clerk regarding the city council standing committee on education, the school committee standing committee on finance and operations, to consider meeting jointly on a regular basis throughout the year concerning issues of overlapping interest. And tonight, the first topic will be the projected fiscal year 22 budget. And I'll turn to both the Superintendent Bignetta and to our Chief Financial Officer, Brian Allen. I don't know, Mr. Allen, you want to start? Or
Sure,
Superintendent
I will.
Thank you.
Let's share the presentation. All right, so good evening, both committees. The city manager and the superintendent are both finalizing their budget recommendations for next year based on the governor's proposed budget, particularly in this case for state aid. I'll provide an overview of the FY22 budget for Lewis Public Schools based on that data, and that will be released to both committees in a couple of weeks. First, it's important to highlight the FY22 budget will be framed by the following major budget themes. First is an unprecedented enrollment decline, primarily at the preschool and kindergarten level, along with a lower than average inflation rate, creates an overall decline in the foundation budget before the new phase-in of the Student Opportunity Act funding is included. And it's important how we plan for the enrollments of students at the pre-K and kindergarten levels for next year to be discussed on later slides. The FY22 initial general fund budget is less than the FY21 budget adopted last June before the late summer budget reductions. Our budget is based on a per pupil funding formula, and that reduction is a result from the pandemic-related enrollment decline. The FY22 state budget restarts the first year of the Student Opportunity Act that was enacted in 2019. The governor's budget phases in 1/7 of the target goal rates, while the House of Representatives budget uses 1/6 of the phase-in rate. The FY22 budget will utilize new federal stimulus funding available, and while some of that funding is being used now, it will be ending by the end of this year. And then the annual budget always provides and reflects the new staffing, resource changes, and new district initiatives, such as early college, innovation pathways expansion, and educator diversity pipeline, as well as continuation of technology obligations, enhanced facilities maintenance, and related staffing associated to support instruction. Student enrollment is, as you know, a key driver in annual funding through the state's foundation budget. Enrollment from October 1st is used to determine the foundation enrollment for funding purposes for the following year. During this past year, the district saw a unprecedented 1,058 student enrollment decline, a drop of 4.2% from the prior year. 71% of this decline is at the preschool and kindergarten level. These two grades were down 746 students, representing more than a 24% decrease at the pre-K and kindergarten levels from the previous year. While it's assumed that this decline is attributed to parents not enrolling these children this year, our staffing model for next year anticipates that these students will return. The district experienced a 2.8% decline in grades 1 through 6, and it's important to watch these closely if this was pandemic related and they will return to prior year levels, or if this is more of a systemic decline going forward. We did, in pre-pandemic enrollment forecasts, predicted a slight enrollment decline over the next several years. And then finally, enrollment at the secondary levels, grades 7 through 12, remained essentially the same from the prior year. It's important to show this enrollment declining is consistent across the state. 86% of the operating school districts in the state had enrollment declines from the previous year. Overall, the state had a 3.9% enrollment decline of just more than 37,000 students, a similar percentage decline as Worcester's 4.2%. For context, the state enrollment declined only 8,200 students cumulatively over the prior 10 years. Of the 37,000 student decrease, preschool and kindergarten decreased 46% of the total amount, or 17,200, nearly an 18% statewide decrease in these two grades. Grades 1 through 6 enrollment declined 4.2%, greater than Worcester's decrease of 2.8%. And while Worcester's secondary enrollment was relatively the same, the state grade 7 to 12 enrollment slightly decreased by 0.6%. Looking at city resident and student enrollment at other school districts as compared to last year, Commonwealth Charter School enrollment is slightly lower. Students enrolled in other school districts through school choice is slightly higher, and resident students enrolled at private and parochial schools is down about 20%. The enrollment data suggests that the largest factor of enrollment decline for our pre-K and kindergarten students just did not enroll this year, likely due in part to the pandemic and remote learning to start the school year. Therefore, the FY22 foundation budget for Worcester reflects the following factors. The enrollment decline results in a $9.7 million decrease. The inflation factor applied to the per pupil rates will increase $6 million. And the first year phase in the Student Opportunity Act that we'll discuss in more detail reflects an $18.9 million increase. Prior to this new Student Opportunity Act funding, using just inflation enrollment changes, the foundation budget would have reduced $3.5 million next year. However, phasing in the new Student Opportunity Act over a 7-year period provides $18.9 million next year. All factors combined, inflation, enrollment, and Student Opportunity Act funds reflects a $15.3 million foundation budget increase for Worcester for next year. Now, it's important to highlight that this increase is in relation to the budget that was reduced $16 million last year. The city's foundation budget includes resident charter school and school choice students, so we have to reduce those costs from the foundation budget to get the Worcester Public Schools FY22 general fund budget that will as follows. Chapter 70 state aid increases the $11.6 million, as you can see, and the required city contribution increases $3.7 million, equaling the $15.3 million foundation budget increase. Overall, the foundation budget is a 3.8% increase over the FY21 final budget, which again was reduced by $16 million in August. From these amounts, we must reduce the amounts for charter school tuition, school choice tuition, and special education assessments. In total, these assessments have a net total of just about $30 million for next year, and when deducted from the foundation budget, results in the FY22 general fund budget for the Worcester Public Schools totaling $386.2 million. As a result, this reflects a $13.8 million increase over the FY21 adopted budget, again from the reduced FY21 amount. The FY22 foundation budget is actually less than the initial FY21 budget from last January, and the FY22 general fund budget is less than the FY21 general fund budget that was approved by the school committee last June. The FY21 budget was then reduced by $16 million, primarily using one-time remote instruction savings such as student transportation, crossing guards, and literacy tutors, and these costs will be needed to be added back to the budget for FY22. As you will see, the FY22 budget will simply reinstate these costs for next year. As a starting point, the baseline budget for FY22 are the same as these amounts. And again, in more detail, as a starting point, using the final budget amount that was adopted in December, we must add back all the one-time savings, again, as I stated, student transportation, day-by-day subs, crossing guards, trash removals, among others, for the total of $13.6 million. The actual starting point next year is a $386 million budget. So you can see that essentially the FY22 starting point and the current budget are the same. And that's before we factor in FY22 inflation costs of about $11.6 million in areas such as health insurance, retirement, contractual increases, transportation, and so forth. So we're actually starting the FY22 budget planning process with an $11.9 million budget deficit for next year. The actual budget increases needed to cover the restored one-time cost and our inflation costs would require a $25.2 million increase. In the slides following of the Student Opportunity Act, I'll discuss the proposed legislative remedy that we had requested for both the House and Senate and discuss, in absence of that legislative help, how we will use one-time federal stimulus funds to offset this deficit. So before we get into that, the governor's budget restarts the phase-in of the Student Opportunity Act after the initial phase-in last year, as was included in the adopted budget for Lewis Public Schools in June and then eliminated in subsequent state budget updates from last summer. There are 6 major changes to the foundation budget formula resulting from the Student Opportunity Act. It was the school committee, administration, members of this community, and other stakeholders were very active in the advocacy and justification for the change in the state's foundation budget formula. As determined in the state's Foundation Budget Review Commission, the first update is the amount provided for employee benefits and fixed charges. The per pupil rates will be adjusted over a 7-year period to use a new inflation factor intended to more accurately capture increases in health insurance as benchmarked against the state's Group Insurance Commission health plans. Next, the Student Opportunity Act provides funds to expand guidance and school psychological supports for students. And again, this funding level will be phased in over a 7-year period. The act increases the amount of funding for special education out of district tuition closer to the amount prior to special education reimbursement, or more commonly called circuit breaker funds, as well as increasing the assumed in-district special education enrollment numbers. The largest change included a new formula for Worcester and other urban and gateway districts is 2 changes for low-income students. First, the act has a significantly increased per pupil rate and increases the low-income students, so that increases the low-income students. And the second reverts back to the pre-2017 method of counting students as low-income. And then finally, the last change is for English learners. The first change made several years ago was to convert funding for English learners from a base rate to an incremental rate. And the second change is to increase the incremental rate over a 7-year period to better reflect the cost of providing English learner services. The new first year phase-in of the Student Opportunity Act is the $18.8 million, and it's shown as broken out by those categories. Moving to federal stimulus funds. To date, the district has received state and federal stimulus funds primarily used to date to support costs incurred resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, which have been around technology, internet connectivity, personal protective equipment, ventilation system upgrades and analysis, training, enhanced cleaning supplies, instructional software, and instructional technology support positions. The district will have $120 million from the federal ESSER funds, ESSER 1, 2, and 3, to be used over the next several years. As the next slide shows, these funds will be used in a manner that aligns with the district's strategic plan, supports requirements of the Student Opportunity Act, and meets the school committee's 7-point fiscal policy, notably around funding sustainability and the targeting of new revenues. The district's plan is to strategically use these ESSER funds over the next 3 years to sustain technology, facilities, and safety purchases, provide bridge funding to support the expected enrollment increase in lieu of any state support for hold harmless enrollment funding, provide accelerated funds for Student Opportunity Act initiatives at no more than 1 year advance funding, provide robust summer school and school year after-school recovery and acceleration programs, as well as enhanced professional learning for instructional staff, and provide additional funds for building ventilation system replacement and building renovation projects. Again, this legislative priority, so the district, along with other districts and state advocacy groups, have advocated for legislative support around hold harmless enrollment for FY22. This support reflects the, excuse me, this unprecedented 37,000 student decline to the pandemic, and 46% of that statewide enrollment decline was at the pre-K and kindergarten level. Using hold harmless enrollment protects funding for the anticipated enrollment increase of these missing students for next year, in addition to the normal pre-K and kindergarten enrollments that we would normally see next year. The proposal would simply use the higher of the 2019-20 school year or 2020-21 school year student enrollment as hold harmless for that 1 year period. To illustrate the impact of hold harmless enrollment, here is a slide that shows FY22's foundation budget for Worcester that includes the inflation and in first year Student Opportunity Act funding increases $9.5 million enrollment decline. With hold harmless enrollment, the enrollment levels will be held at the same year level, so there would not be a funding decline, and as a result, would result in a $24.9 million increase, and that's exactly about the number we need for the FY22 baseline level of funding. So as we start planning for the FY22 budget, there is a couple of potential impacts that we are addressing. First is elementary enrollment. The enrollment trends over the next after the 2 years of decline. We'll need to determine again if this is a systemic enrollment change or what we plan to see come next school year. How many of the preschool students and kindergarten students that would have enrolled this year enroll next year? And do we see a large bubble when combined with the normal preschool enrollment levels next year? To what extent does social distancing for students need to be in place next year, impacting both class size and student transportation capacities? The cost of ongoing expanded filter replacement and ventilation system maintenance for full functionality will be costly, and to what extent the district makes additional ventilation system upgrades through federal funds. The final state budget, hopefully sooner than last year's budget, may provide additional funding or support for hold harmless enrollment. The sustainability of instructional software, now that we quickly became a one-to-one district, and to what extent the use of PPE is expected and will be needed into FY22. The FY22 budget gap and how much of these one-time federal monies we will need to balance the budget. Fixed costs continue to even exceed the new foundation inflation rates for these areas. The district will open the new South High School, and there will be new costs associated with the new school, maintenance, custodial, moving, relocation, other staffing needs that will be needed. Again, the advocacy around the hold harmless enrollment with the state. We expect that at some point beginning next year, the state will consider how the low-income student count will be folded in for FY23, so advocacy around how students are captured in that count, particularly for communities like Worcester that use community eligibility, where all students eat meals for free, so we no longer collect free and reduced lunch applications. District will open a standalone dual language school at the former St. Stephen's School, as well as the district is working on an application with the state on a remote academy, starting with grades 7 and 8 for next school year. The redevelopment of St. Cobain property requires the facilities department to vacate that space before the end of this year. That space at St. Cobain was previously provided at no cost to the Worcester Public Schools. And so next year we'll have additional facility rental costs that did not exist prior to this year. And then the district has, again, became a one-to-one district in a very accelerated way. And so costs associated with the upkeep, maintenance, and support of these added devices, as long as the long-term planning for sustainability of one-to-one devices starts with FY22 budget. Just some brief highlights of what the FY22 budget will include. Of course, more details to follow in the actual budget presentation. Budget will be adding 145 new positions, primarily through the ESSER funds, including 20 English learner teachers, 22 special education teachers, and 20 educational support positions for special education, 13 early literacy specialists, 6 teachers to support administrative diversity pipeline with Worcester State University, 6 additional nursing positions, 5 health teachers at the high school level, 4 school adjustment counselors, 4 Chapter 74 teachers at the new South High. Some additional spending, again, includes robust summer and after-school recovery and acceleration programs, expanded adult English learner classes, approximately $1 million in textbooks, curriculum materials, and educational supplies, and training and mentoring opportunities. So, Mr. Chairman, this is the highlights of the FY22 budget for Lewis Public Schools, and Superintendent and I would be happy to answer questions from the committee.
Great, thank you, Mr. Allen. And we've had the opportunity, Chairman Bergman, to go through this and ask some questions. And I would turn to you to see if you and your colleagues had questions you wanted to ask based upon the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll first turn to my colleague, Councilor King, and ask if he has any questions.
Not this time. I will momentarily. I do have a quick question. I know there's some folks that were calling in for public participation. They're looking for some direction, but I'll defer to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor King, and I'll ask our clerk to kind of give us the lay of the land, so to speak, on the public participation, when that will occur.
Sure thing. I'm not sure what avenues the education, or excuse me, the school committee side has. We're currently going over the school committee agenda. We have a section for people to do that at some point, depending on the chair's decision-making around what the public participation process will look like. And when we get to our agenda, I'm sure a ruling will be.
So my thinking, Mr. Chair, would be that we'll go through the school committee agenda, and then we'll go to our agenda, and we'll take public participation at the beginning of our agenda.
Very good, thank
That
you.
works for us, I think.
Councilor Rosen, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions here, because the presentation was clear and thorough, and I appreciate Mr. Allen giving us that presentation. I can't remember some of these things. School choice, does Worcester invite students from other school systems through the school choice program, especially at the pre-K and K levels?
Through the chair, I can answer that. Yes, we accept school choice students, so residents of other school districts can attend the Worcester Public Schools. We accept about 100 students per year across all grade levels.
Have those figures gone down, do you know, at all, too, since other figures have gone down?
So that, through the chair, that number has remained about the same as it's been for the last several years. So we're still around that 100 student choicing into the Worcester Public Schools.
Through the chair, is the 100 a limit set by the Worcester Public Schools?
Through the chair, no, there's no hard limit on the aggregate number. There may be individual schools or programs that have capacity limits or exclusions. That just happens to be the trend on the number of students that we've accepted over the last several years.
Does it make any sense, Mr. Allen, to try to recruit more pre-K and K children from some of the surrounding towns? I just think we have a pretty good program at that level.
Through the chair, so at the pre-K level, all our spots are generally filled by our own students, but we have we've attracted students at the kindergarten level. That's one of the highest level of school choice seats are at our kindergarten level.
Okay, that's good. And then maybe this is not for the coming fiscal year, but over the next few years, with all the apartments being built in Worcester, and I'm sure that some will have children. Those children will wind up in the Worcester Public Schools. So have we been taking that into consideration, or is it too early? But we will have a lot of apartments coming online over the next few years.
So through the chair, as part of our enrollment projections, we do look at things like birth rates or building permits. That does get factored into our enrollment projections. We do see long-term, particularly at the secondary level, some enrollment increases, but with the New South High and New Doherty High, hopefully a couple of years later, they are built to absorb that secondary capacity. And then at the elementary level, like I said, we've seen a couple of years of decline, so there may be some capacity availability there now, and we'll have to closely monitor that. Of course, some of these apartments that are being built are in high-density areas, so there could be impact on some of the schools that they will impact. So we do pay attention to that, and we're going to have to watch that closely as they come online and as residents occupy those buildings.
Okay, and I think it was your last slide. It went by quickly, but was that $1 million on textbooks? Is that the whole, it's $1 million, the whole account? So I remember when I was on the committee decades ago, we never put enough into textbooks. Hopefully we're not using any of those textbooks still that I was on the school committee when we bought them. But is that what it is, $1 million for all the textbooks for the whole system?
So through the chair, over the last couple of years, through either one-time savings or other initiatives, we've been able to purchase textbooks throughout the district. For FY22, the $1 million is really for either add-ons or replacements and so forth, so or adding on AP classes, so we have to purchase that group of textbooks. It's not this year, it's not a whole grade 9 math textbook, for example. That's not what we're considering.
So we're not using any longer outdated textbooks, because decades ago we did have that problem.
Correct. I'll defer to the superintendent. She's muted right now, but she certainly can answer that question.
No, we don't have any textbooks. There is a rule that says more than 5 years.
wow.
We're not supposed to be using those textbooks, and we're supposed to update them. So we have been continually updating them. A few years ago, we did all the algebra books, and then we did the geometry books. And as we update and get new courses, because we're always looking for new electives, we will then purchase some of those books too. But it's important to know that a lot of the books that we can purchase now too are, there can be a classroom set, but then everything is online. So students don't have to carry their books home anymore. If they have their Chromebooks and access, they can get access to their books online.
That's great, Jay. My final question is a word that I hadn't seen before. What does it mean when we talk about ESSER funds? I hadn't heard the term ESSER before.
Yep, so through the chair, that's a great question. So the federal stimulus money that we're getting through either the CARES Act or the American Recovery Plan is elementary and secondary relief funds. So the money we're getting is called ESSER funds from the federal government.
Okay.
Cities getting similar funds. It's called something else. Ours is called ESSER funds.
Okay, and that's particularly for schools then?
Yeah, the ESSER money is particularly for schools, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Good job, administration. Good job, school committee. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rosen. I would just have a couple questions. What ESSER funds were was one of my questions, so that's off the list. With respect to the city contributions, maybe Mr. Allen, do you have the numbers, and I don't blame you if you don't have them available at the moment, for what the city contribution was last year compared to what the city contribution will need to be this year?
So I do, through the chair, I do know that it's a $3.7 million increase. I don't have the exact dollar amounts in front of me, but I could, give me a second, I could actually pull them up.
Sure.
So through the chair, the amount this year, the total city contribution for the general fund is $123.3 million. Next year, it goes up by the formula. The required contribution goes up $3.7 million, so it goes to $127.1 million.
And one last question. The previous year, what was the contribution? In other words, going into last fiscal year, what was the city's contribution? If you have it.
Yep, it was only like a $1.1 million difference in that year. It's based upon the city's municipal revenue growth factor.
Okay.
I don't have that number handy.
That's fine. No, thank you. And through your chair, Mr. Foley, to Mr. Allen again, I believe, on this question of school choice, which is interesting to me. You said there's about, I believe you said there's about 100 people coming into the school system, into the Worcester school system. How many people do we know go out?
Through the chair, we've been holding steady around 500 students that opt out to other school districts. So 500 out, 100 in.
Okay. And of the 100 that come in, I think you said they're primarily at the kindergarten level, but I could have misheard you.
Through the chair, we do see a large amount at the kindergarten level, but it's actually across all grade levels.
And the ones that go out, is there a certain grade level where you see a predominance of going out to other districts?
Through the chair, just anecdotally, we can drill down into the numbers. It's pretty well distributed across all grade levels.
Okay. All right. Those are the questions I would have for now. Just going back one last time, Councilor King, do you have any follow-up questions?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Just a couple of things. First, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also the educational chairman for guiding us through this process. My first question is regarding the hold harmless legislation, and I apologize if I missed it. And I know that I don't know if it was days or weeks ago, or maybe multiple times, I know the school committee has been advocating and lobbying our legislators, as well as the school administration. Just wondering, do we have an update on, I know the numbers were factored in the presentation, but is that a done deal? What's the latest on if it's legislation or what have you, where that process is.
Yep, through the chair, thank you for that question. The hold harmless enrollment was not included in the House budget that was just approved yesterday or this week. So we're still hoping that the Senate includes it in their version, which is due out in a couple of weeks. So as of right now, the hold harmless enrollment was not part of the House, and we're hoping that it's a part of the Senate version of the budget.
Okay, and just wondering, in layman's terms, I saw the numbers, what happens if we get it or we don't, if it's held harmless or not. In layman's term, what impact would that have operationally for the schools, Worcester schools?
Through the chair, in a normal year, there would be significant reductions in staff and services. However, for this year, because we were asking for these funds to be one-time only, and then it would reconcile itself in FY23, meaning if the students come back, then they're now counted again in our foundation budget, which gets reflected in the FY23 budget. Or if they don't, then we knew that the reduction was correct or accurate. So what we're going to do this year, absent any state assistance, is we're going to use this ESSER funding, this federal stimulus money, to bridge us for 1 year, because we expect that those students will come back. So it doesn't really make sense for us to reduce staff, particularly at the elementary level, when we expect the enrollment increase to occur at the elementary level. So we'll use ESSER funding as bridge funding, and then we will reconcile ourselves the gap for next year. If the students return, we will see that increase in the foundation budget. If we don't, that ESSER money is phasing out. That portion of the ESSER money will be phasing out. We're going to have to make reductions in FY23.
Okay, thank you. And as far as any COVID reimbursements and things of that nature, those are all completely calculated into this budget? Are there any sorts of reimbursements? I know, and maybe I'm using the wrong term, but I know the city helped out a little bit with some of the funding for the air quality and all of that. Are there any anticipated, I know you're talking about the ESSER funds and all of that. I would assume some of that's included in there, but is there any other sorts of avenues by which to get some sorts of reimbursement outside of the federal support? Through the chair.
Through the chair. So we would explore any of those if they become available. None that we know of at this point. The ESSER money is the federal's COVID response in the 3 different passages of either the CARES Act, the American Rescue Plan, or the coronavirus relief package. So that's the funding we're using over the next 3 years to support operation, including additional work with the city on some ventilation improvements, which we'll be presenting to the school committee, I'm sure the city council later on this year.
Additional ventilation, okay. And the last question I have on this budget for the time being is just regarding the buses situation. I know it was come before us at budget time previously. There were some thoughts around cost savings and all of that, and I know there might be some other challenges right now with the Worcester Public Schools and the bus companies, but is there any savings? I mean, I saw the overall savings, but moving forward with, I believe we have a portion of the buses that perhaps we own or the school owns. Can you just talk a little bit about any cost-saving aspects to us, with our own buses versus the ones we contract with?
Through the chair, so the administration presented to the school committee more than a year ago a multi-phased step looking at potential of self-operated student transportation entirely. You're correct, Councilor. The Worcester Public Schools owns and operates some big buses and about half of the mid-sized special education bus, and contracts out the remainder. And so I would say that study is still ongoing and under the school committee's purview for future consideration and action.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Councilor Rosen, any follow-up questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, all set.
Okay. turn it back to Chairperson Foley.
Thank you, Chairman Bergman. And I'm going to turn to my colleagues. We've had the opportunity to review this, but if there are any comments, I'll start with Ms. Biancaria. Oh, are you muted there? Diana?
Thank you. On the ESSER funds, to administration through the chair, they talk about, when you research it, it talks about ESSER funds 1 and ESSER funds 2. Are we looking at all of this as 1 and 2 being allocated in the funds that we're using?
Through the chair, since then, there's also an ESSER 3, but yes, what's ESSER 1, 2, and 3 have different ending dates, and the plan that we will outline for the school committee is a 3-year plan of spending those funds so that they're sustainable, so that they meet strategic plan initiatives, and so that they also meet requirements of the Student Opportunity Act.
Okay. And it says here that provide accelerated funding for Student Opportunity Act initiatives in lieu of state funding. Do we have a dollar amount of what we're looking at for that?
Through the chair, so what we have anticipated is going forward about $13 to $14 million per year of the phase-in of Student Opportunity Act funds.
Okay.
So, for example, the FY22 budget will pre-fund through ESSER money FY23 Student Opportunity Act money. So next year, what we've started this year, we're going to put in the general fund against Student Opportunity Act. So we're accelerating on our own, again, thinking that is kind of the intent of the use of ESSER funds, is to kind of accelerate spending in those areas.
Okay. And then you mentioned that you look interested in sustaining the technology and safety purchases. So we are looking in the future, whether it be 21, 22, but it doesn't seem like the Chromebooks will be returning to Worcester Public Schools at any point in time. Is that correct in the assumption?
Well, through the chair, so the recent purchases in the last year that got the district up to being a one-to-one district, we have to sustain those costs, including the educational software applications going forward. So at least for now, we're going to bridge that period using ESSER funds, but long term, we're going to have a strategy that will sustain the Chromebooks as one-to-one devices, plus the cost of the educational software that we operate on those devices.
So presently, we're not looking at making that bridge for 22. Is that correct?
Through the chair, we've now purchased or we're leasing all of our Chromebooks.
Right.
So we have 30,000 Chromebooks now. There are some additional educational software costs that we are going to maintain going into next year and over the next 3 years. When we get into FY25, we're going to have to start moving those funds into the general fund budget, using the ESSER money initially, and then transitioning to Student Opportunity Act money through FY25, 26.
That's why I'm asking. I was wondering how far out we actually were going. So we're looking at FY25. We would have that more of an effect on us, correct?
Through the chair, yes, exactly. And we'll know more as we kind of get through what our replacement cycle will be on these Chromebooks, but that's our current thinking.
Okay. And when we look at budget planning, you hit many topics here, and I had a couple of questions. How are we moving along with the dual language school in the remote academy? Do we see this as September 21 being open and ready to go?
Through the chair, yeah, I'll defer to the superintendent.
Through the chair, yes. Both of them will be ready to go in August of 21.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we, sometime in during our July meeting, then get a full detailed report on both of those pieces. So we are giving ample time where we're running into May and we're going to be looking at the budget, but what programs are going to be there, the number of students, the real details, the down and dirty of the dual language school and the remote academy. I think it's something we've all worked towards, and we are hoping for the success of it. So I would like to make a motion for that, please.
Yep.
When we look at facilities in the department space, do we have an approximate dollar amount on what the rental cost for the new location is going to be under the facilities portion? I mean, I know we're doing a lot of work up there and in the new building, but it's the old Allegro building. We're putting offices. There's a lot of work there. There's parking lots. There's going to be operations for buses and so on. Have we divided up what the cost is going to be? Or are we looking at one lump sum so you wouldn't be able to let me know what the facilities cost is going to be?
Mr. Allen?
Yep, through the chair, I think the FY22 budget does break that out for you, and the cost for facilities is just under $400,000 per year. And again, that previously when we were in Saint-Gobain space, that was provided at no charge to us. Prior to Saint-Gobain, as you know, we were at 89 Shrewsbury Street.
Right. So we're looking at almost an additional $500,000 for a space for our facilities. You're looking at 400. Am I correct on that?
Through the chair, that's accurate.
Okay. Okay. And then the new South High opening, you talked about transferring and some additional costs. That wasn't included in the budget for South High School?
Through the chair, so there are additional staffing positions that will be needed to support the Chapter 74 programs. Large building, it's going to need additional custodians. So those are being factored for new positions in the FY22 budget. And then between this year and next year, there are costs associated with moving. There's costs associated with just the general relocation of the school. And so not that that's insignificant, but it's really the long-term cost of a bigger building. It's going to cost more for maintaining. There's going to be more custodians. There's going to be more teaching staff running the new Chapter 74 programs. Those are really the programmatic costs that will be factored in the FY22 budget.
So it's more program than it is maintenance due to the fact we're not talking about electrical and heating, because every year when we look at our budget, I've always talked about the electrical and heating up at the old South High School. So are we going to have an opportunity to see some different numbers for the new school is how I'm looking at this?
Through the chair, yes on one hand, but no on the other hand, because of the complexity of the systems, it's running on MERV 13 filters. You're going to have more filter changes. They're very expensive. So you're going to see costs in other areas to maintain that building, to do it correctly. You may see, you also see savings, relatively speaking, in terms of energy, but it's also a much larger building than the current South High. So you're heating and providing electricity to a much larger square foot footage. So you're not going to see significant savings at the end of the day because of increased costs to maintain a very complex, technologically built building.
Okay. And then when we look at the ventilation systems, we are going to be hearing that for a number of years, I'm sure, for replacing parts. I was surprised that it had its own category due to the fact that I thought what some of the stimulus money that came in, but there were places in federal and state funding that took care of some of the ventilation pieces that we were talking about. And then we received money from the city. So when we're looking at our ventilation systems and it has its own category, I'm a little concerned on what is your anticipation of the costs for that?
So through the chair, as one of the councilors, and you stated the city was actually very helpful in the installation of the bipolar ionization equipment. total of about $15 million for the schools. We paid about $1 million. The city has so far paid the remainder. But going forward, we're again partnering with the city. So we're looking at a citywide approach at school buildings and municipal buildings in terms of actual other ventilation system replacements or improvements. We're using or setting aside ESSER funds to do that work over the next 3 years. And the reason it's a standalone item is because we're allocating about $45 million of our ESSA money for that work.
45 million. Okay. Okay. So it does get its own category, I guess, unfortunately. But it's something that's needed.
And again, I'm sorry to interrupt, school committee member, but we're working with the city on that. And so that kind of quote unquote master plan is in its works. And so I think, as I had mentioned at a prior school committee meeting, we expect that work, that review, analysis, recommendations to be forwarded to the school committee and presumably the city council sometime in the fall, around September.
Okay. The other thing is, I certainly want to thank you for talking about. I know Ms. McCullough is here, and Mr. Monfredo. I know it was announced that he was here, but we've talked about the lunch and the breakfast, and feeding our students and making sure that no one goes hungry in Worcester. And we're not tracking as we did years ago. My past experiences have always been, even when I worked on the summer programs for WPS, that we tracked that and we received money, and now we have it set up totally different. Do you feel as though we're going to have the ability, you mentioned a little about it, as far as how we're going to be dealing with the funding coming back and forth? What are your thoughts on that?
Through the chair, good question. And so just as a quick review for those who might not know. So during this past year, we did see a significant decline in the number of meals served, but we stood up almost immediately last March these remote feeding sites and home deliveries. I saw on the news recently the YMCA was touting the millionth meal served. All those meals were produced by us. And so we provided those meals to the Y to deliver. So the Y has been a tremendous partner in helping with home deliveries of those meals this year. Those meals were produced by our culinary team. So we were able to continue providing meals this year. Going forward, if the expectation is all schools will be back in person next fall, then we should see a return to a more normal, whatever normal means now, feeding operation at schools. So we would expect a return to serving in the area of 4.5, 5 million meals a year, like we normally would be doing.
Okay, and that will make the difference in the numbers as we look, because I know you mentioned it briefly, that we're going to start tracking again and looking at it. So our idea for tracking would be to continue that every student, breakfast, lunch, and snack, and after school at some point in time in other sites. So I'm just wondering, are we looking as an administration the cost of going forward in that positive manner?
Through the chair, yes. We continue to participate in community eligibility. So any student is eligible for breakfast, lunch, snack, and in many cases, we've started dinner programs in schools, no cost to students, fully funded, reimbursed by the federal government.
Right. So we're anticipating that we're going to continue on that road.
Through the chair, we're going to continue to do that as long as we're allowed to do so.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the update, and I like getting my information. I had an opportunity to take and peruse through that. Some of my questions were answered prior to this. So those were pieces that came up this evening as you went through. So I thank you for your input on this, Superintendent, and to Mr. Allen. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Biancardi. And we're going to have a couple more passes at this as well. We're going to be having a forum in mid-May of our committee to allow the public to hear about the budget and give us their feedback on where they think we should be investing. And then, of course, in June, we'll have those two long sessions that we'll be able to pull apart the budget as well. So we will be able to dig deeper into this one. Ms. McCullough, do you have any comments, any questions? You're all set.
Ms. Biancaria covered a good amount of ground, so I appreciate that, and thank you for the presentation. And I certainly am looking forward to when we get to talk about the summer programs and TLSS, so we can come up with some good plans together. So thank you.
Great. So I'll close out this first item by asking Dr. Friel if we could have a roll call on Ms. Biancaria's motion.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I did have one
Yes, Chairman.
committee member that may have a follow-up question. So if I could,
certainly. Go
before you
ahead.
do that, if I could, to Councilor King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairpersons. Just a couple quick questions, follow-up questions around some of this stuff. So really quickly, I'm just trying to get a dollar amount, if we can, through the chair for, I know there's some additional positions that were shared, 145 new positions to the ESSER funds. Just wondering if you could give me a dollar amount for, the nurses. I think there was 6 nurses. What does that equate to? And the 4 social workers. You gave me 2 separate numbers for that, so I can have an idea. Through the chair.
To Mr. Allen, if you have that, or Superintendent has that.
Through the chair, for the 4 school adjustment counselors, it's about $310,000, and for the nursing positions, similar numbers. It's a little less than that, a little less than 300,000.
Perfect, thank you. And the other follow-up question I had was, I know there was some talk about coming back to the city or working with the city around some of the facilities or the buildings, the school buildings. This is something and I could be wrong, and I apologize to my colleagues if I am, but I believe it's been a kind of the baby of, I think, Councilor Rosen and Councilor Bergman around building consolidation with the city. So I'm just wondering, not that it's necessarily related, but that's what I thought about. Where is the school at with regards to the exploration of building consolidations with the city of Worcester? I don't know if that's the administration. I would assume. I don't know.
Mr. Allen or Superintendent Benienda?
Through the chair, I think that's part of this ongoing work. The initial recommendations from the consultants have been around collaboration around large-scale building projects, and so we're certainly taking advantage of those recommendations. But we continue to meet with the city manager and his team frequently on those discussions, and so I think that's all folded into our ongoing work with the city.
Thank you. I know I would assume there might be some fiscal opportunities to maybe realize some savings. Just as an aside, last Tuesday, was that yesterday? A couple days ago, at council, I introduced some items related to moving forward with future work and telework and consolidation of workspaces and what have you on the city side. And I'm not sure how or if there's a potential impact there. And I know some of these monies, when you're talking about facilities, are for upkeep and enhancements. And, I don't know if my colleagues who've really been championing this issue have anything on it, because they really know more about the building consolidation angle than I do. But when I was sitting here listening, was just wondering what considerations would be made that way. That's all I have for questions on that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything else, Chairman Bergman?
Mr. Chairman Foley, I think we're good on our end. I don't see Councilor Rosen raising his hand, so I think we're good on our end. Thank you.
Great, then Dr. Friel, if we can have a roll call on Ms. Biancaria's motion, followed by a roll call to hold the item, be great.
Chairman Foley,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McCullough,
Yes.
and Ms. Biancaria.
Yes.
And on the motion to hold, Chairman Foley,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McCullough,
Yes.
and Ms. Biancaria.
Yes.
Great, thank you, Dr. Friel. The second item on our agenda for the joint session from Mayor Petty, 0-246, request that the 2020-2021 educational plan until fall 2020 return to school guidance be forwarded to the Standing Committee on Finance and Operations and the City Council Standing Committee on Education for a joint meeting. You received reams of paper and slides, information on our reopening over the course of the year, and we have another milestone this Monday coming up, another one May 17th, and I asked the superintendent if she could give a few minutes just overview, she would, of the reopening, and then Chairman Bergman, turn to you for any questions you and your colleagues may have relative to the reopening of schools. Superintendent Benenda.
Sure. I think, I don't know if you have the article in front of you, but on page 5, I think it's an important page. It talks about all the transitions that we've had this year. So the first is 9:15 to 3:12. We were in all remote, all students were remote in the public schools. On 3:15:21, students with complex significant disabilities and our SLIFE NCC students transitioned to 4 days of school every day a week. Then on 3:29, we transitioned 12,000 additional students. They were all other students that were not complex significant disabilities or SLIFE students from pre-K to grade 12, and that was to hybrid learning. So those students go to school either Monday and Tuesday and do remote Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or they go Wednesday and Thursday and they're remote Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. As of Monday, 5/3, 69% of students in grades pre-K through 8 have elected to return to school full-time. So that will be 5 days a week, and again, just pre-K to grade 8. We are currently, right now, have our survey out for students in grade 9 through grade 12, asking them if they want to return 5 days a week or in person or 5 days remote. And those are the only 2 selections. That particular survey does close on this Tuesday. Our up-to-date as of a few minutes ago is fascinating. Right now we have 1,300 students that have responded to this. The election of in-person is 798 students and remote 502. Basically what it's showing is that we have more students in grade 9 and 10, grade 9, 257, in grade 10, 234, wanting to return in person. Grade 11, 163 students, and our seniors, only 144 at this point are electing to return on person. As far as our busing goes, there's only another 98 students that actually would need a bus. So because each time we do these changes, we have to reroute all the buses because more kids get on, as you know, at different bus stops. So again, we are only at 1,300 students now, and it's looking like, 798 in person and 502 remote. For the selection on Monday, the exact number of students that are coming back in elementary are 949, which is 71%. And in the middle school, 2,204, which is 63%. So there are 11,329 students that have elected to come back in person and 4,541 that have elected to be remote. And I did provide for you by school the numbers. And basically the teaching model is that the teachers will be teaching the students in front of them as well as the students that are remote using the Chromebooks. We've had to alter the schedules several times, but once again, we had to alter them because we had to think about how we're going to feed the students 6 feet apart. So the difference between the hybrid and the in-person is that for the hybrid, the students were 6 feet apart from each other, 6 feet apart from the teacher. For the in-person model, It is 3 feet apart from each other and still 6 feet from the teacher. Lunch, though, however, is still 6 feet apart, because once you take down your mask, there has to be that 6 feet apart. So we included in the packet a list of the schedules. The safety procedures that we've used for hybrid have been extremely successful. Generally, we've had a really low rate of virus transmission, and we think it's because our staff have been well prepared, both by our 2 coordinators, 2 COVID coordinators, Rob Bozzella and Jim Bedard, as well as our principals in every single school and our COVID leads in every single school, as well as our nurses. We have opened up our playgrounds now, and the surfaces are cleaned by our custodians. Our custodians have done an amazing job of also cleaning all the touch surfaces during the day, and then also at night we use the misters in every single classroom. We're thankful to the city for helping us upgrade with our needlepoint bipolar ionization systems. I feel that the students in the Worcester Public Schools are so fortunate that we did do that work in partnership with the city for our ventilation systems that are able to, catch the viruses. As you know, they catch E. coli, C. diff, the norovirus, MRSA, and the COVID-19 in 30 minutes. They kill or inactivate it. Our transportation is both Durham and Worcester Public Schools are all set. For Monday, we are having 109 buses from Durham go out, and we will be providing transportation to all those families that are eligible for that. We have a emergency, they call the medical waiting room. That's in every single school. It's staffed by a CNA. So there's a nurse in every building plus a CNA in the medical waiting room. If a student comes off the bus with symptoms or a student is in a classroom with symptoms, they are escorted to the medical waiting room. They are assessed. And then if they're deemed that they may have COVID, they are referred to Family Health. Family Health is doing all our testing for COVID, and they're doing 2 tests on students. So if the student's first test comes out negative with the rapid test, then they're given a second test to verify that indeed that student is negative, and that information is shared with the parents and the schools and DPH. So we feel that the hybrid learning has been extremely successful, and we're thankful that we got to do the hybrid learning before we had to move into full in-person, because they say you work the kinks out of the system. Well, everything has been worked out, and we're ready now and excited for our students that are going to start school with us on Monday. Also, just another point, our 10th graders begin the English MCAS on Monday. So those students, they'll be in hybrid still, but we'll start MCAS on Monday, and we're preparing for May 11th when our elementary will start MCAS, and we'll also be providing MCAS remotely, which we're working those challenges out right now. So open to any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. And Chair Bergman, I'll turn to you for you and your colleagues to ask any questions about the reopening.
Thank you, Chairman Foley. Councilor King, do you have any questions?
Sure. Through the chair, just wondering if there's been any exploration or discussion or solidification of any aspects of virtual or remote learning that will remain, and if in fact, it's perhaps codified in some form or fashion, and if there is, would there be any fiscal savings connected to it? So just kind of briefly looking at, I think that there are some places across the country that are considering such. Just wondering if that is kind of in the mix at all, through the chair.
Through the chair. So there really is no fiscal savings for our remote learning this year. It will continue until June 15th. We will be offering several options for summer school for secondary students, including some remote summer school from 3 to 6 at night. The reason we're offering that is that a lot of our students may get summer jobs. We hope they do. And so we didn't want them to miss out on credit recovery. So we still will be offering virtual during summer school. The brand new virtual was the public school virtual school that we are currently working with the state on. Will service grades 7 through 8. However, that will also include a acting principal for that position right now, and 7 teachers, school adjustment council that will be shared with the dual language school, and a guidance counselor. So there's no savings in that. The whole point of that is really when we say we want to be able to service all students, we want to be able to service all students, and we have found out from doing remote learning, there are students that have done very well with it, and we want to give that option. So we're starting in grades 7 and 8. Once you get into high school, there are so many courses they take. We weren't ready to take that on at this point. We wanted to be able to grow it. So this year would be 7 and 8. Next year would be 9. And yes, it would be a total virtual, or as you say, remote school.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor King. Councilor Rosen, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not much to say, but I'm glad that the teachers and students are getting back to where they all belong, and that's in the classroom. I know Superintendent Bonenda had a lot of faith in the virtual learning and all that, and I just don't think virtual learning can compare to in the classroom for teachers and for students, but I'm glad that, students and teachers have the opportunity to return. Many of these teachers, I'm thinking, haven't really met the students at all, have they? I mean, we used to meet them, the first day, and I think when I was around teaching was, right after Labor Day, so first school day in September, and you can say, yeah, they met them online, but, what do you think of that? I can just see it's going to be a big adjustment for teachers and for students. They haven't been there for over a year. They're just meeting each other, basically. From what I know about teaching, all my years of experience, I mean, it's a tough enough job when you have the continuity and there's no pandemic, and you see the students from day one, and you see them every day, and you get to know them. Teaching to me was always part performance. You're basically performing. You're being serious at times. You have a sense of humor at times. You're empathetic at times. You're strict at times. You're understanding. It's all those qualities that I don't think any of that comes through online and virtually. So I don't know, through the chair to the superintendent, it's just a major adjustment for teachers and the methods and for students. And I hope that teachers all know that this is, what do we have, 5-6 weeks left, whatever it might be. Maybe it's not even that long for the students to be there. And it's an adjustment for those students. And maybe let's ease up and let's try and make it really comfortable for the kids and see if we can have some good learning during the last month. But I hope the teachers realize it's a big adjustment too for those kids. So do we have any meetings on that, and how the teachers should work in the classroom with the kids?
Chair, we have, as I was saying yesterday at the WEC meeting on reopening, is that one of the silver linings for us this year was that we had professional development every single Friday. So in our regular union contract, we only have 180 minutes a month, 2 90-minute meetings that we're able to do professional development. So now with having Fridays all year, we've been able to get great professional development done for our staff. Staff have been able to meet in professional learning communities. They've been able to look at curriculum. They've been able to plan together. So all of that has resulted in our staff being very well prepared for the students coming back. the teachers and the students are very excited. And as we started with hybrid, so we had 12,000 students back with hybrid, but that was 2 days a week. And now, we have almost 12,000 coming back 5 days a week. So a lot of the introductions have been already made because we have the hybrid. And for those that didn't choose to do hybrid and are coming from remote back into the classroom, the students and the staff are really excited to be able to see each other and to see the teacher that's been working with them and teaching them all year.
So the teachers know to be patient. That's probably the best word, am I right?
I think the teachers have learned that word through this whole year, right? Because there's been a lot of challenges, to learn technology and, the Google Classroom. There's been a lot of training they've received. So I would say that the teachers are patient, and there are 31 days from when we start for in-person till the last day of school. So, teachers are, looking forward to spending all those 31 days together with their classrooms. And, if, for example, with our high school and our middle school, especially our high school students, because, this is the time of year where you meet with students to check on, how are they as far as graduation in reference to their grades, third quarter and fourth quarter, right? You've already seen their first and second quarter grades, but now averaging grades, there are some kids that always are kind of on that border. Are they going to make it or not? And so these next days are really important for giving students that opportunity to do projects that will help them increase their grade. And so teachers are going to be patient, but they're also going to be focused on helping students end the year. So we're calling it, end strong. So we really want every student to end strong.
Have we, do we expect to lose many teachers, perhaps during the summer, to early retirement, maybe that we didn't expect to lose, or even to other careers? Will there be a change in the number of teachers that we have?
We always lose, teachers to retirement every year. I don't think we have an extra large amount. There hasn't really been a very clear early retirement bill offered at this point, right? I know there's been conversation about it. So at this point, we're just expecting our regular number that have planned on retiring to retire.
Okay, thank you. Good job again, administration and school committee, on getting those buildings open. I think we're all excited about it, so good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rosen. I just have a couple questions, a couple very, very brief comments, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I would say that I agree with Councilor Rosen. I'm sure many of us agree that as much as technology has helped the challenges of COVID, there's nothing like interacting with people, but in the future that technology may come in handy. Hopefully not for pandemic-related reasons. I would say that I remember my first day at Doherty High School. There were two of you that were there greeting many of us, including Dr. Friel and City Councilor Gary Rosen. So I remember both of you very well when I showed up at Doherty High School in the fall of 1977. But I would say that I was at University Place yesterday, invited there to talk to some of the students, and I could see that the challenges were pretty great as far as trying to manage a classroom with actual students in the room, and then the screen up and trying to manage the virtual part of it too. So I tip my hat off to all of you in the administration and the teachers and everybody involved in trying to make the hybrid system work, because it's not as simple as some might think, and if you're in the room you can actually see what a challenge it really is. A couple questions I have would be to the superintendent. Has there been any information from other cities or towns that maybe have opened the schools up a little earlier, or perhaps other states, as far as what resources that are being seen needed to help students adjust from being out of the school for so long? Has there been any glaring needs for some sort of adjustments that might be pandemically related only?
So I'm in constant communication with both Boston Springfield because we're the three largest school districts in Massachusetts, and all of our timelines are very similar. So that, and of course, we've already been back hybrid with more kids than Springfield had gone back with. So the conversations that we had were, mostly about, are we going to have enough teachers to come back? Because at one point the discussion was about the number of vaccines and would the teachers be able to be vaccinated before they came back in, and how many teachers were going to take leaves until that occurred. So most of that was about coverage of classrooms, substitutes, and of course, as far as dealing with the social emotional effect, how to make sure that, we had enough counselors, clinicians, school adjustment counselors, which we do have enough of right now. I think that the guideline was like 250 cases per person, and we're down to 132. So we have we have behavioral specialists, we have school adjustment counselors, we have BCBAs, we have ABA therapists, we have special ed clinicians, RAPs, and that didn't even include the 49 guidance counselors. So we have plenty of support staff, and everybody is ready and was ready to work with any students that needed extra help.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Through the chair, again to the superintendent, I was curious, have you seen, or perhaps Mr. Allen could weigh in as well, any particular school or any particular grade where the levels of interest in coming back from the students has been unusually lower than expected or unusually higher than expected, or is it pretty evenly distributed amongst the different grades in the different schools?
Through the chair, when we were doing the hybrid, we saw that in places where the majority of the students were white and not low socioeconomic level, that the majority of those children's parents chose for them to return to school. We did see in schools that we had a large number of Latino parents initially for the hybrid, that there was not as many of them choosing to come back in person. And, many of these families received personal phone calls from the schools, asking them, to come back and what was their choice going to be. And the most common response reason for not coming back was really fear of the virus. And that's what made the difference between the schools. So, and it was not surprising because, we have been hearing about how hard communities of color have been hit by this virus. Some of them have really experienced great losses in their own families. And so there was also a certain mistrust of getting the vaccinations. So it was not a surprise to us. What was a surprise to us is how many students are now choosing to come back with 3 feet between students rather than 6 feet. And, I think some of that may be that a lot of the teachers are now vaccinated. And I think that was a concern of some parents. So the adults are vaccinated now. Students over the age of 16 can get vaccinated, and hybrid has gone extremely well. So, I think those are the reasons why we have so many coming back now 5 days a week.
Well, that's great to hear so many coming back. 3 last quick questions. I've had a couple of constituent questions regarding the technology we're using today and in the future when we're all back to school full-time, whether or not snow days are still going to be an issue or whether or not the technology could impact snow days. I'm wondering, Superintendent, if you could comment on that through the chair.
Through the chair, I would love to say that we would go remote for snow days, but the commissioner has not given permission for that. There was some conversation asking if we could do that, and he said that would be a conversation that we would have later. So at this point, we can't say that snow days will be remote. However, if we could make the decision, the school committee would approve it and have it count for time on learning, I think that would be a great way for kids to still learn and for us not having to make up days at the end of the year.
No, I appreciate that. I hate to even mention the word snow days in late April, but people have asked. And two last questions. The graduations this year for the high schools, are they all going to be anticipated to be virtual, or is there any opportunity for anything different?
Okay, well, we have good news now for you. Our graduations are all, so we're talking about the high school graduations are all at Polar Park. So Doherty is June 7th, and South is June 8th, Burncoat June 9th, Worcester Tech June 10th, North June 11th, Claremont is June 12th, UPCS is the 13th, and GCC is the 13th, and St. Casimir's is also June 11th. So we're at Polar Park. We're hoping for good weather so that the kids can experience how wonderful it's going to be to have their graduation there. And the middle school graduations right now are planned for Foley Stadium. And those are going to be on June 11th, June 14th, and June 15th.
I appreciate you getting those dates out. And my last question is that I'd like to think this will be true. We'll see. But I think so many of us have discovered over the last year plus, almost year and a half, the importance of human contact and you know, how much we've missed, you know, interacting with each other on a personal level. I'd like to think that as the pandemic winds down and we get beyond it, there'll be a lot more of interest in people getting together for different things, kind of making up for lost time. And I'm just curious, the adult learning program that used to exist, and maybe it still exists and I'm just not aware of how it exists, could you just comment on what's the status of that? And if it doesn't exist, what would it take to bring it back?
So there are really two adult learning programs. One is the one at the Adult Learning Center, which is in the Fanning Building. That program does exist. It has been virtual all year. And actually, in talking to the director, Jennifer Brunel, she said that they were able to get many more adults in because they did it virtual. And so it has been highly successful, and there are components of that she would like to keep. We also have the adult learning to offer more ESL classes for adults. And as you know, there's been a waiting list of well over, 200 people trying to get into the ESL classes. As part of the budget that we added, that we wanted to fund ESL classes, more adult ESL classes happening at additional sites in our public schools. So that's an add that we added to this budget because we really know how important it is for the parents to take ESL classes. We also have a nightlife program, which is also for adult learning. And that right now is focused out of Worcester Tech. Those programs are updating your plumber's license or trying some internship trainings to be a plumber. It's also electrical, updating your electrical license. We've been doing some HVAC training, and we've been doing it virtual. So we're looking forward to next year getting back to offering those classes at night. And actually, students can take those classes if they would like to too. High school students or students that graduate from high school so that they can get some experience in the trades. So those are the two programs, and we are still running them. And we will continue to run.
I appreciate that. Just my last comment, with respect to the nightlife program, I remember a day, and I went myself, where there was a variety of classes, not necessarily geared towards vocation, but you could take, floral arrangement, ballroom dancing, and pretty much everything in between, photography. I just think that people are going to be yearning to get back into being together for those types of programs, and I'm wondering, just very quickly, is there an opportunity to look again in the future to do those kinds of programs?
Yes, so we did, we were in the middle of a very big expansion of the programs. There are over 80 classes that we were offering last year, but then of course with COVID, not everything can be done remotely, right? And so we'll get back to those. There was jewelry making they offered last year. There were shot courses that people could take. So we Unfortunately, the person that ran that program for us suddenly passed away. We do have a new director, and she has really picked up the ball and working on expanding the programs again.
Okay, thank you. To Chairman Foley, I do have one colleague that has a question, but do you want to go to your committee first and then come back to us, whatever your preference is?
Sure, I don't know if any of my colleagues have any comments to make. We've been over this quite a bit as it is, so. So I think we said, Chairman Bergman, if you want to have the follow-up question, that's great.
Thank you, Chairman Foley. Councilor King, do you have any follow-up questions?
Thank you. I do. Just as we were speaking, was there someone to speak before me? Sorry. Speak before me? No. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Sorry. So just a question around, some of the designated allocations. So we know that here in the city, we're very conscious about diversity and inclusion, particularly given where we are in this country, in this Commonwealth, in our chambers and in your chambers. And I wanted to kind of note one of the portions of the budget that speak to succession planning, I believe, as it relates to the 6 teachers that are in the pipeline, the administrative pipeline, I believe. And I would assume they must be going on some sorts of educational leave or something, but because there's ESSER disbursements related to this. Just through the chair, if there's, just wondering if there's any other place in the budget where we could see commitments to diversity and inclusion. If it's, I know there's been challenges as it relates to recruitment, the diversity of our teaching staff, our administrators, our, I call them school adjustments / social workers, and more. So just wondering through the chair, is there any other place, and if you'd like to elaborate on that pipeline, that's fine. I think it's significant, but is there any other place in the budget where we could see those efforts reflected at all? Thank you.
Superintendent, a brief answer, Ken?
So that pipeline is, they don't have to take a leave. The pipeline is you apply to get a master's in administration at Worcester State University. It's a cohort plan. There were 12 candidates that applied for that. There were more than 12, but there were 12 that got selected. First, you have to get accepted by Worcester State University as meeting their requirements, and then they pass the list on to the district, and we review the candidates, we interview them, and we come up with a group that we feel is eligible for this special program. So at Worcester State, the program is not limited to Worcester Public School individuals. However, our program, the ones from Worcester Public School, have special programming. So they take extra training in ESL and extra training in special ed. Their second year of their program, half of them are placed in a school, and all our schools are diverse, and they get to work as an extra assistant principal for that school for 1 full year. And they still receive their full salary, and we pay, and we like to hopefully get a Worcester State new graduate sub that will come in and do their current job. So right now we have 6. 3 of them are diverse candidates. They will be an extra assistant principal in 3 of our schools next year. And then the following year, which is year 3, the extra 6 will have that opportunity. So it's actually modeled after a very successful program that Clark University runs called the MAT program, where you get a full year of experience. So if you're going to be an administrator, assistant principal, you have to know how to open a building and you have to know how to close a building. And the problem with the current programs in administration training is that you only usually do the first half of the year or you do the second half of the year. So we really wanted to offer this unique opportunity. So that's the budget you see there is for the teachers that are going to be the substitute teachers for a year to replace this opportunity that we're giving our employees. We are also in the budget, you'll see, we also have the program for instructional assistants, also our partnership with Worcester State with this, to also, we're paying for mentoring by experienced teachers for our instructional assistants to get their degrees at Worcester State and do that with the support of a mentor. And that program is in partnership also with a state program that provides some funding and scholarship opportunities and grant opportunities for our staff. Also, for next year's budget, you'll also see a program which is involving Build Your Own, and it's a program, I'm trying, the name of it is escaping right now, but it's like Teach America, but it's not Teach America. And what it involves is a program for middle school students of color to get involved with teaching. It involves a summer component. It's for 250 kids, and it also has teachers of color from our own school district as well as from across the country mentoring those students. The idea, it's a very successful pipeline program where, and it's proven, it's been in the United States for over 10 years, and it is to create that diversity pipeline for our students also into becoming our teachers. So what's not in the budget are other things such as our chief diversity officer's salary, some of the costs for recruitment, for advertising our positions in other places besides School Spring. We find that that's somewhat limiting, and so some of the other places you have to advertise, you have to pay for. So some of that is under our regular Chapter 70 budget, and then our training of our staff on the value of diversity, some of that culture responsive work, the anti-bias training work, that's all included in the budget that you're looking at.
Thank you so much. I didn't mean to have such a long response. I just would have been remiss if I didn't ask. You know, it brings to mind, you know, some of the thoughts around the importance of budgeting, and you know, I just appreciate it, and really. You know, when the administration comes before us at budget time, you know, it's always certain themes that certain counselors look at, and you know, I've always looked at issues pertaining to social emotional health and diversity, and we know the importance, and I do believe that it's very important that people can see it so that they can actually envision it. And when you have folks, if it's men, women, people of color, folks of different sexual identities in our schools, it certainly, I think, empowers everyone and makes us an even healthier and stronger school system. So I appreciate the efforts, and I know that they'll continue as we move forward. Thank you.
Councilor King, it's Generation Teach. The name of the program is Generation Teach.
Thank you. That's great. 250 kids. That's a great way to kind of expose them to the profession. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor King. It's certainly on our radar screen as well. We know it's something we have to keep working at. So, Chairman Bergman, if I can, I'll just make a quick comment and ask for a vote, and then turn back to you so you could run your Education Committee agenda. Just a comment about how much work this really is for all of our staff and all of our teachers and our families that are out there, and great kudos for really getting us through this year so far, and doing all the preparation for bringing students back and adjusting to remote learning, to hybrid learning, and then in-person learning. It's been a challenge for everybody across our entire world, and it comes home to Worcester as well. And I just want to say thank you to the faculty, the staff, and the families and the students for really getting us through this year so far. Dr. Friel, if you would, I think the motion is to file 0-246.
Chairman Foley,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McCullough,
Yes.
And Ms. Biancaria.
Yes.
So Chairman Bergman, I'll turn back to you to work through your education agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Foley, and thank you, everybody, for participating on your end. To our clerk, Mr. Pottle, I would like a motion, please, to approve the minutes of our last City Council Standing Committee on Education, if we haven't done so already.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have Councilor King,
Yes.
Councilor Rosen,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Yes. Public participation. Would you like me to read the instructions on that, or would you like to do that, Mr. Pottle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can take care of it. I believe usually under most circumstances, the cable services will provide the call-in information for this, but we'll just briefly state that if you would like to participate in the meeting, you may dial 415-655-0001, and you can use the access code 157-255-8935, and there's also a link associated with this meeting that the public is also able to access as well, and you can find that link right directly on the agenda. Mr. Chair, I'm not sure, would you like me to begin the public participation section?
If you could begin the public participation section, that would be great. Thank you. How many callers do we have anticipated in total right now?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this point, we have 10 anticipated, unless some people are just listening or something like that. I should also state, too, if you could please, as a public participant, state your name, city or town of residence, and which item you are speaking on. That would also be appreciated as well.
Mr. Pottle, could you just remind the participants the time limits we give for individual speakers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speakers are allowed 2 minutes under traditional city council ruling, so I believe that will be the same for tonight as well. So with that being the case, I have 2 call-in users. I just unmuted the first. Could you all please state your names, and we'll let you know if you're the person that we can hear. Let's see, I'm not hearing that call-in user. I will unmute the other call-in user. Could you please state your names?
Hello, can you hear me?
I heard a hello, can you hear me?
Hi, my name is Kimberly Rogers. I am a Worcester resident. I'm calling on behalf of item 4B in relations to hiring and placing school nurses, adjustment counselors, and wraparound services in schools instead of police. I just wanted to say as an educator that I think it's really important that as we develop a safety plan in relations to removing school resource officers, as has been agreed upon, that we consider the importance of the increased mental health services and the wraparound services for children. There's a lot of research that supports school counseling. A meta-analysis of school counseling outcome research found an overall effect size of 0.30, and it also found that school counseling interventions had a larger effect size than aspirin for preventing heart attacks, and that an equivalent effect size to sertraline, which is Zoloft, compared to a placebo for treating major depressive disorder. And this is from the American Psychiatric Publisher. That, you know, I'm not aware of there being a safety plan in place right now, but there are many community organizations that are willing to work on this and engage youth and families in this conversation. And so I would just urge both City Council and the school committee to take that into consideration, the importance of the wraparound services. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the next person I can identify is a David Bunker. I just unmuted David now.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, good. So I'm a Worcester resident. My children went through the Worcester Public Schools. I have one grandchild and another on the way, who I hope will also go through the Worcester Public Schools. I also want to comment on 4B relative to replacing the school safety officers with more school adjustment counselors and nurses with special training to deal with any disruptive behavior. I'm very happy that the city manager's recommendation to remove public safety officers from the schools in Worcester, and support it fully. And I enjoy the fact that the school committee and the city council are hosting this meeting to discuss alternatives. One of the things that was said by the city manager and by the city council was that they recognize that people want to know that their kids are safe in school, so there needs to be a plan. And my suggestion again would be more school adjustment counselors or school social workers, and more nurses and people specially trained to deal with mental health issues. And that's it.
Thank you, sir. All right, so the next person I can identify is a Dawn Johnson. I just unmuted Dawn now. Let's see here. Not hearing Dawn. I guess we'll move on to the next person. I just unmuted Eileen Sullivan. Eileen, can you hear us? Let's see, not hearing Eileen. We'll move on. Next person I can identify is a Fred Taylor.
Yes, hello. Just want to make a brief comment on miscellaneous item 4B. I was listening a few minutes ago. I'm actually multi-meeting it right now, so I may have misunderstood it. Did I hear there's 130, a little over 130 social workers and support staff for each student in Worcester Public Schools? That's a question. And then my comment is, even if that is true, with moving the police out of the Worcester Public Schools, thank you, Mayor, City Manager, all involved for doing that. I'm going to advocate for an increased number of social workers and support counselors for the students. We need that. I think that will make a big difference in solving some of the issues. And I just, again, I don't agree with having the police in the schools, and I really wish that they could not have this police in the schools starting the next school year. And then the second thing, I'd like to make a comment on in support of 4C. I highly recommend that the colleges and nonprofits and others promote civic engagement to educate the youth in the city. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Fred Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. The next person I can identify is Margot Barnett. I just unmuted Margot now.
Great, thank you. My name is Margot Barnett. Can you all hear me?
We can, yes.
Great, okay. My name is Margot Barnett. I'm a resident of Worcester. I'm also speaking on 4B. First, I want to say that I think it's a really good development that we're moving toward removing police officers from our schools. There's been study after study that shows that the presence of law enforcement does not, in fact, improve school safety and leads to poor social and academic outcomes for some students from marginalized populations whose populations regularly experience negative interactions with police. So my expertise is in nervous system health, including brain health. I know how trauma affects the brain. The history of trauma programs a person's brain to react impulsively and strongly to anything perceived as a threat. A person whose brain is in a state of threat cannot think rationally, cannot respond rationally, but can only react either fleeing or lashing out. If the response to this behavior is violent or otherwise threatening, it compounds the threat and the situation can quickly escalate, possibly leading to lifelong terrible consequences. So we know that many of our students have experienced trauma in their young lives, so they're at a risk for this vicious cycle. The good news is that de-escalation is possible. What can promote de-escalation and lessening of the sense of threat for folks like this? There are many reputable studies on this. Building trust, letting students know they are supported, listening to students' experiences and points of view. Cultural competence, so key to building trust. Who has the expertise to do these things? Counselors. Even better, counselors who are embedded in the diverse cultures that are represented in our student population. We need more of them. Reputable studies again have shown that higher ratios of counselors to students lead to better outcomes, both academic and social. This past year of the pandemic has introduced whole new kinds of trauma, so now more than ever. This is the pathway to truly safe and supportive schools.
Thank you. Let's see here. The next person I can identify is a Paula Quinn. I just unmuted Paula now.
Hello, I'm Paula Quinn. I'm a Worcester resident in District 2. I'm the founder of Honoring Thurgood, which is a Worcester-based organization that promotes social justice in and through education. And I'm speaking on agenda item 4B. I'm a white woman speaking in solidarity with Worcester students and their families and the Worcester Public School teachers who've been teaching in the most challenging circumstances of their lives, as we know. We know that students are returning with lives that have been hugely impacted by COVID, by stresses their families have experienced, and by the murder of George Floyd. And we also know that students won't be able to learn or connect with each other as best as they can if they're struggling with these mental health issues. We've seen students with issues now, and psychologists have reminded us that we should expect students to have trauma, PTSD, and anxiety, among others. This mental health challenge for schools is unprecedented. And experts in school-based health services have said that to meet this challenge, districts should have a safety net that's designed to serve all students, and that it should do a couple of big things. One, it should be equally effective at supporting students both in school and at home. And as Superintendent Benenda reported earlier, a lot of students aren't coming back in person. Two, it needs to offer a continuum of care, something that's not disconnected, but that is tiered, that includes things like universal supports for everyone, like a high quality social and emotional learning curriculum, all the way up to intensive in-school programming for students with severe challenges. Plus, there should be a mental health screener who could serve to identify those challenges. Now, that's a lot, and it's critical, and we won't be in a good spot without more support. Councilor Rosen highlighted the need for teachers to be patient. A way not to tax teachers' patience is to set them up for success. Superintendent Benenda identified that there are more than enough supports for students. It's unclear how the various positions identified actually map onto the needs. So please, ensure that the needs are truly being addressed, and that if they're not, that there's funding there to meet the needs that still exist. In addition, Councilor Rosen asked earlier that maybe is there a way we could ease things up? And this last point addresses that. We know that SROs won't be in schools next year. We also know that their presence is a source for trauma of many students and families. So please don't allow the SROs to return to schools this year. That would only exacerbate the trauma and the challenges, and the funding that would have gone to them would have a more productive impact if used to increase mental health support. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person I can identify is a Scott O'Connell. I just unmuted Scott now.
Nothing.
Let's see, not hearing Mr. O'Connell. We'll move to Stephanie Castano. I just unmuted Stephanie. All right, and not hearing Stephanie, Mr. Chairman, that brings us to the end of the people that I can identify.
Thank you, Mr. Pottle. Let's go to agenda item. Do we need a motion to close the public section of the meeting?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
So with respect to the agenda, the next agenda item would be item 3A, communication of the city manager, transmitting information communication relative to a change in fines for Worcester residents at the Worcester Public Library. Mr. Pottle, I believe we have a representative of the Worcester Public Library, and I want to thank him for his patience and apologize for having him have to wait, but we're glad he's here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me see, I'm just trying to identify Mr. Homer. Oh, yeah, there he is, right in the middle. Yep, we found him.
If I may, through the Mr. Pottle, so I guess the initial question would be, we've had a period of time where there's been a change in fines regarding no fines for people that return books late. So my question would be, has there been any change in that you can tell in the behavior patterns of people bringing books back on time versus not bringing them back on time in light of that change in the policy?
Certainly, I will take a brief moment with the council's indulgence to just introduce myself, because this is my first time meeting most of the individuals on this call and in this room. My name is Jason Homer, and I am the new executive director, or commonly head librarian, for the Worcester Public Library. I'm very excited to be here. I did inherit this fine-free, however, I have an immense support of it. So I will provide a little bit of context with a very large asterisk to that question. And when we removed fines, we unblocked well over 6,000 library cards. I'm actually looking at a picture myself. It's very distracting because I had to turn off my picture because I was getting a little thrown off by it. I apologize. So we unblocked well over 6,000 library cards with the elimination of late fines. I use that term late fines because it does, people are still required to return items, and if they go unreturned, they become lost, and therefore they do have bills on their account, but as soon as they return those items, they are no longer there. So what has that meant to us is obviously difficult to track right now, because we are, while we have seen an over 50% increase from last year to this year in ebook usage, we've seen a significant decrease in print book usage. However, I think one of our most interesting data sets is of those 6,809 cards that became unblocked, 4,843 were teen cards. And if we look at our teen services right now from FY19 to FY20, our teen attendance in programs increased 254%. And from FY20 to FY21, which we're currently in as of April 1st data, the teen enrollment in our programs has increased an additional 83%. So we are seeing people return. The correlation between actually numbers waived and the numbers that, whether or not those people who had waived cards are coming in, is a correlation we can't fully draw, but we can infer a little bit from that.
Thank you. First of all, welcome. I appreciate your formal introduction, and just take 1 second. Worcester, I'm assuming you're not native to Worcester, but you might be, and if you're not, where you're from, if you don't mind telling us.
Certainly. I'm originally from Brockton, Massachusetts. So I lived my whole life in Massachusetts, and prior to my appointment here, I was the director of the Morse Institute Library in Natick. So I just came down Route 9. I have not moved yet to Worcester. This housing market is a nightmare.
Well, I wasn't asking the question to try to get you to admit to that, but hopefully we'll have you as a taxpaying resident of Worcester someday in the near future. Councilor King, do you have any questions for the new executive director of the library?
Just a comment. I think the housing is a blessing and a curse all rolled up in one. But we appreciate that you're here. We look forward to where you're going to bring the library. And just, I guess I do have a quick question. What is the fine increase exactly? I don't have it in front of me. I know we had it. Oh, it's waived. That's right. Okay. All right. Perfect. No fair library. There we go. Thank you.
Councilor Rosen is a fan and a promoter and very involved in WRTA Free Ride, so I'd be very surprised if he doesn't have anything to say about no fines. So, Councilor Rosen, do you have any comments or questions?
Actually, I don't have much to say on this, but welcome to Worcester, Mr. Homer, and we'll have to talk soon about the housing market and straighten you right out.
Right.
Thank you, Councilor.
In any case, this reminds me of the what had happened a few days ago in Oklahoma. A woman, 20 years later, she just found out she was charged with a felony because they claimed that 20 years ago she took out a VHS tape. I don't think it was a library. I think it was from a private company that's no longer in business. It's been closed for 10 years. But she borrowed the tape supposedly, and she's got a felony charge on her record now, and she thinks it has costed her jobs over the years. But she never took out the tape. The Sabrina, the teenage witch, she said it was an old boyfriend whose daughter took it out. She didn't know about it until 20 years later. So
Well,
So we will not be doing that to any of our community members.
Yeah, be good to the people in Worcester, okay? This is not Brockton.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Chairman Foley, do any members of your committee have any questions for the new executive director?
I would say welcome to Jason as well, and I think we're set. Fair to say that we're good. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Homer, thank you for your patience. We try to accommodate you earlier. We've got a somewhat busy agenda tonight, but we appreciate the opportunity to have met you, and I know in the future we'll be spending more time together and getting to know all of us better. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Miscellaneous agenda items, item 4A.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, but do you want to file the item or?
Apologize. Thank you, Mr. Potter. My motion would be to file the item.
Councilor King,
Yes.
Councilor Rosen,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor
Yes.
Bergman. Thank you.
Miscellaneous items, item 4A, order of Councilor Gary Rosen, Councilor Morris A. Bergman, Councilor Donna M. Colorio, Councilor Christian E. King, Councilor Candy Merrill Carlson, Councilor Sarai Rivera, Councilor Sean M. Rose, Councilor George J. Russell, Councilor Kathleen M. Toomey, Councilor Matthew E. Wally, and Mayor Joseph M. Petty request the Standing Committee on Education hold a public hearing to discuss how the city can better meet the high demand of English for speakers of other languages, ESOL courses. So that's the agenda item 4A. If I may, we are grateful to have Superintendent Benenda here, and if I could I guess I don't need to go through Chairman Foley because it's our version of it, but through the Chairman Foley and myself to Superintendent Benenda. Can you give us some thoughts on this agenda item?
I lost a little bit of connection for a minute. Can you?
I could repeat the gist of it is we're asking for any input that how the city can do better in meeting the high demand of English for speakers of other languages.
So for the city as a whole, for us in the school side, we have interpreters that we provide for our family forums. We translate all our documents into 8 languages, and I'm not sure whether the city side translates their documents into different languages, but I find that has really greatly increased our communication with our parents and our understanding is to always make sure we have interpreters for any, for our family forums. And actually, we hold separate ones. We have held separate ones for the first time this year in Spanish only because we have a large Hispanic, Latino population in the Worcester Public Schools. And also anything we put on our website is also translated into many languages. So I'm not sure if the city side does all of that, but that would be something that I think would be advantageous also.
If I could, is there anything, if you had a magic wand and money wasn't the issue, is there anything that you could think of right now that you'd like to be able to do that you haven't been able to do because of money being a factor when it comes to this topic of educating others on speaking the English language?
Broadband would be great.
I'm sorry?
If we could get, broadband, right? So that we would be able to get communication out to all families through the internet, where things can be translated. If we could have broadband, because right now, and I know that the city manager is working on that whole issue of broadband for all of Worcester. But right now, our communication is through the Chromebooks to all our families, and we are paying now through Spectrum as the single payer, and then we also have those 5,000 hotspots out through Verizon that we paid for. So I think to keep families connected through communication, if more families could have access to broadband, they'd also have, access to more information that's going on in the city of Worcester.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Superintendent. I just make a comment and then defer to my colleagues. I remember my first year, actually my second year at Doherty, there was a student that arrived from Vietnam, and there were no programs like this then, and he had a Vietnamese English dictionary in his back pocket, and I remember thinking to myself, it's hard enough for the rest of us that where English is a native language, but how is he ever going to manage? And, you know, to his credit, he did very well, but I'm glad that we don't have to make exceptional cases the common cases, but the opposite is that we give everybody a fair chance to try to learn English and do better in their native language. And I'm sure we can even do more than we're doing, but it sounds like we're doing a fair amount, which is great to hear. Councillor King, any questions or comments? That's all right. Take it.
I was on mute. I'm confused. I was unmuting myself. All right, now I'm on here twice. Whatever. Okay. Yes, through the chair. Just, you know, was happy to see, again, one of the highlights that was pointed out in today's presentation around using the ESSER funds for 20 English learning teachers. You know, and again, it brings to mind a bit, I think, you know, one of your colleagues on the school committee side, Tracy Novick's often on social media, and it's, you know, she pins the budget reflects your values. So that brings that to mind, and you know, really glad to see that that's here on the forefront. I know that we have so many immigrants here in the city, so many people who have challenges this way and trying to learn and navigate the public schools. Just wanted through the chair, if you could share a little bit about the successes and barriers, maybe just a couple of bullet points, not necessarily anecdotal stories, but in regards to COVID and the pandemic and you know, the challenges for these courses and that these teachers had. Through the chair.
Your question, Councilor King, is to Superintendent Benenda.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. That's fine.
Chair, I think there's been some silver lining. Absolutely, one of the silver linings is that we had a 5-year technology plan. We were in year 2 of that, beginning year 3, and we quickly slid right into year 5. So all of our kids, you know, we have plenty of Chromebooks for our students. We have replacement Chromebooks for our students also. We were able to get internet to everybody. That's a silver lining. The other part of the silver lining is that we have trained our staff. So when we used to do observations of our staff, we used to always try to get staff to use more technology in their classroom so that students can be connected to other students outside of their classroom, outside of their school, outside of their city, so that there would be opportunities for students to work in small groups together while the teacher provided individual instruction to others that needed more support. So all that training has been completed, and it's really amazing to go into a Google Classroom and to see the work and the learning that staff have really been very successful with over a short period of time. So that's the silver lining. The other silver lining is that the communication with families really have never been better. As I had previously stated at some other meetings, is that, you know, when we were doing remote, the students were in our teachers' homes and our teachers and staff were in our students' homes. And that establishes a trust, right? When someone invites you into their house and you're in the house working with their children. And oftentimes, some of the stories that are very heartwarming that teachers have shared is that the grandparent or the parent or other children that were younger in the house would be sitting alongside of the student learning also. So the technology, the relationships, the professional development that we have done for staff, and the whole concept, you know, like with Worcester Together, that we're part of, and so is on the city side part of it, is that everybody has to work together. I think that message has come out loud and clear. Work with the pods that were formed with support from United Way and Worcester Together, as well as the grant that came from the federal government on that, allowed our parents to work and for the children, while we're in remote learning, to be able to learn and have a safe place to go where they also receive their food. And they were warm and they got to learn in a very collegial environment. And then our collaboration with the pods on looking for additional places for some families who became aware of were having difficulty with remote learning. And that partnership that occurred because of that was also a silver lining. Also, we worked with 10 cultural agencies in the city. As you know, cultural agencies here, Hanover Theater, Ecotarium, I'm trying to think who some of the others were, the Craft Center, Worcester Art Museum. You know, we worked with 10 agencies, and some of those agencies were really suffering financially from COVID, and we were able to do two things. One, support our cultural institutions because we really value them in Worcester, because what they teach to adults as well as children, but also for the first time provide for students that never have been to the Worcester Art Museum an opportunity to do art, see what it's like virtually from the Worcester Art Museum. You know, they would drop off supplies at their houses, they would do projects with them. All of the agencies provided opportunities for kids that we never would have been able to provide. So as COVID, you know, isolation and the loss that it caused for families and the stress, out of it came a lot of silver linings. And the story behind them is that we want to continue to use and remember what we learned as a result of COVID and the wonderful things that we want to carry back in non-COVID times.
Thank you. Appreciate that explanation, and really, I know the school and even our educators and our colleagues on the school committee have done a great job interfacing with the private sector and with regards to all of this and enhancing the Worcester Public School experience for our kids and our families. So we appreciate that. I just wanted to say before I forget, you know, again, if I haven't said it, a thank you to the school administration and our colleagues on the school committee. I think this particular council for me, this joint committee meetings for me are extremely important, particularly as we approach budget time. The only real time we get to or have to have discussions pertaining to these matters are specifically around the budget time, and to get context in these meetings is extremely helpful in preparation for that. So just want to thank you all for indulging us. We certainly understand the parameters of the charter and the differentiation in duties, you know, and this right here is always helpful. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor King. Councilor Rosen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Superintendent Bonanza addressed this when we were talking earlier. She had mentioned 200 people on a waiting list, and the schools are going to try to accommodate, you know, a few more of those folks this year. So I'm glad to see that. And I would just think that, you know, we've used virtual and online for all our classes this past year. I would think that ESOL classes would be great online. So if we could offer it online to people, I mean, you can put 20 in a class, or you can put 100 in a class online. So I would think that's a way to go in the future. But if there are folks in Worcester residents who can't speak English and they want to learn, that's what school is about. It's not just for children. It's for everyone who wants to learn. So I hope that we can accommodate all these folks, and including online. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my motion would be to file this item.
Thank you, Councilor Rosen. Chairperson Foley, any of your committee have any questions or comments?
No, I think this is your agenda. I think you can run that through.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. I just, one last comment to Superintendent Penend. I think the ESL program has made great strides and is doing great work. I would just say, my own experience, it's interesting to note that as challenging as for students, it's also frustrating for parents who speak a different language not to be able to help their own children. I can remember my parents were immigrants and spoke different languages, and one of the things I think that frustrated them the most is that when I needed help, English or history, they weren't really able to contribute, even though they certainly encouraged me to do well in school. But I think it's great to have adult programs. Council Rosen just mentioned that as well. I think the package of being able to help our students and help their families better learn English is a great, it's a great asset, and it's something that speaks very much about Worcester. My motion would be to file.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilor King?
Yes.
Councilor Rosen?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilor Bergman?
Yes. The next item on our agenda, is item 4B, order of Council Christian E. King, request City Council Standing Committee on Education meet jointly with the appropriate Standing Committee of the School Committee to assess and review matters pertaining to the improving the student to social workers ratio to be in accordance with the National Association of Social Workers, NASW standards of 250 students to every one school social worker or adjustment counselors, and to discuss the efficacy of school clinicians and school resource officers. Said review should be completed prior to the budget planning. I would, Councilor King, it's your order, so would you go ahead and fire away?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to begin by, with a statement around, before we get into the ratios around, I think this thing's moving here. What is this? I think that, since my time on the council, I think it pretty much coincided with the superintendent's, beginning of her career elevation as a superintendent. And every single year at budget time, this is an item that we discuss in detail. And I know that we've had these sessions and asked these questions about ratios and all of that. And Brian Allen, we've asked those, I would say, almost every year during budget time in front of the council. That being said, I certainly think that over the time that I've been, my 3 terms, perhaps I'll get a 4th, that there's been an effort, a conscientious effort by our colleagues on the school committee and the administration around social and emotional learning. As a frontline social worker, dealing with young folks and teenagers for the last 23 years, I've seen firsthand that impact, that sort of support in schools, where this is often the safest place for our young folks, and sometimes even for our families. So, that being said, I know that there's an emphasis on curriculum. One of the highlights was pointed out that there's onboarding 4 more adjustment counselors or school social workers. So all of that stuff's important. I also know that we have some challenges as it relates to school discipline that have been bantied around. And when you have school discipline problems at times that are not addressed clinically, in a safe place, they become public health issues on the city side. So, I bring this forward in that spirit, and I do believe that Worcester Public Schools has made inroads over the last 6 years, 7 years, or maybe more, regarding social and emotional learning curriculum and positions. But we, on the city side, at times you have the questions, particularly given the impact it has on public health. When you think about some of our traumatized teens, and I know firsthand the young folks being exploited with human trafficking or responding to trauma of your family dissolving, and the emotional impact. We're now coming out of COVID. I know some of you participated with Liz Hamilton, who's also a social worker, around the impact of COVID on kids returning to school is a number one priority. So, I have I'm just going to kind of split this up in two. I guess the questions I have are if the administration through the chair can share perhaps in numbers, hopefully, how incrementally have we been improving? I know the standard ratio for guidance counselors and adjustment counselors is 250 to 1. I know we're close to that in some of our schools. I'm sure everyone else knows, but I don't know how many schools we have in Worcester Public Schools. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know that as you get to the younger kids, there seems to be a little bit less availability and allocation of school social workers / adjustment counselors. So with regards to the ratio, just wondering if you could give some feedback. Is there any sort of strategic master planning around all of our schools? And, yes, thank you, through the chair.
Yeah. So right now, if I just talk about the school adjustment counselors and school psychologists, I have 100 of them. We have behavioral specialists. They're building-based, but there's also some district-wide ones. There are 7 of those. We're looking at some of our autistic behavior and some of our behavior of children that are in what we would call the Group C group. Right now, we have 32 BCBAs, and we also have 22 ABA therapists. We have 15 special ed clinicians that work with students in our STEP classrooms, which are our classrooms for students that are experiencing emotional challenges. Guidance counselors are also very important in our school district and also help out in the social emotional area. Right now, we have 49 of them, and they are only in the middle and the high school. So that brings our numbers as far as also let me forget the 10 reps that we currently have. So that brings if we added all those, our numbers are really down per how many each adult would have as a caseload. Now, as far as this current budget, there are 4 additional school adjustment counselors and 2 additional behavior health specialists that are added in this particular budget that we're talking about. So as far as the plan goes, it's very school specific. Every year we meet with the district managers. The principal comes. Sometimes he or she brings the assistant principal from the school, and we call it allocation meetings. And they sit down also with their school council, and they talk about what are the needs that we have for our individual school to improve not only discipline, but everything across the school, our students' performance. And they submit that, and then the district leadership, Mr. Allen, of course, leading it with the final number there regarding the budget. We look to see what we can give every school to meet the needs that they really feel is necessary for success in their building. So if there are schools, for example, that you brought up, Councilor King, the discipline. So if there are certain schools that are experiencing, because of the special programs they might have in their school, students that have more discipline, then in those cases, there may be special people that are assigned or hired or added to that particular school. So for example, we do have stability teams, a stability team in one school. There's a grant that we're paying for the Bright program in one school this year. So the positions are not just added randomly. The positions are added due to principal request, which is a collaborative of their school council as well as their leadership team in their school. and looking at their data, as well as a function of the budget of what can be afforded, as well as if it's a school adjustment counselor, then the manager in charge of social emotional learning will be a part of that conversation also. So it's very specific to certain schools based on data and information gathered from many sources.
Thank you. You know, that ratio is important. We know that, you know, in terms of you know, the difference between triaging and actually having a clinical input. You know, one of the things that I've learned over the years working hand in hand with the adjustment counselors and school social workers is they have the ability to do group therapy. They have the ability to do, you know, family therapy, crisis intervention, and all of that, and making referrals to the community. But that's limited given the ratios. Those ratios of 250 to 1 are distinctly important as it relates to the efficacy of their practice. Do you have a sense, you said we're down, right? Do you have a sense of the diversity aspect? I know we have a group, Clinicians of Color group, that I'm the head of here in the city. And you know, one of the things we've talked about is linguistic capacity of our adjustment counselors. And again, you know, the importance of this is such on the city side. Again, you know, the opportunity to address clinical matters and trauma in that safe haven of school is just integral, particularly in a way to help ameliorate those things spilling out in the community and becoming a public health issue. So do we have an idea of the linguistic demographics and race and ethnic demographics of our school adjustment council? I have talked to some who are in high schools, and they may be the only Spanish-speaking person in a school of 1,400 kids. Do you have a sense of that, or is that something that you're continuing to assess on an ongoing basis?
Right now,
Through the chair.
there's several, in most of every high school, there's more than one person that speaks Spanish, right? I mean, there might be one school adjustment. There's only 2 school adjustment counselors in most of our large high schools because they're in one psychologist that could be there full-time or only so many days a week. But there are also other positions there, you know, clinicians, BCBAs, guidance counselors. Most of our guidance counselor offices do have Spanish-speaking, some cases Vietnamese-speaking counselors they're in the guidance office also. So I don't have that complete number, but when we advertise, obviously we are looking in all the positions that we're advertising for qualified people of color to take these positions. I don't think they're, you know, a principal was able to hire a person of color that was qualified for that position, they would hire that person, you know, very quickly. So, you know, part of it is a recruitment challenge. And again, as I said, that we're advertising in other areas now, not just School Spring, because we have found that we get many more candidates and many more candidates of color actually in advertising in different areas, and also having communication with different colleges, some colleges that deal just with students of color. So we are finding that we're having much more success this year than we have had in the past.
Thank you. You know, I know we've been at this for a long time, and this particular meeting, I apologize. I'll just get to the second aspect of what I hope is some fruitful dialogue. You know, really interested in how the administration assesses efficacy of the school resource officers. We know that when we talk about licensed clinicians, mental health counselors, nurses, psychologists. There's a lot of formalized training there. I know for social workers, you have 3,500 hours within a 2-year period before you can take the boards to be a licensed independent clinician, supervised by someone of that standing. And we know that there's so many things that our social workers and adjustment counselors can do. We know that it's intervention, crisis response, as I mentioned, family issues, grief, loss issues, pregnancy, psychiatric, relationship, absency, truancy, all of these things, bullying, dropout prevention, misbehavior, school avoidance, underachievement, sexuality issues, substance abuse. You know, we have the COVID impact here in the city and throughout, you know, Massachusetts and beyond. And those are direct services. You know, we also know that that particular position is capable capable and do, in instances where they have the bandwidth, assist with professional development, can assist with policy development on the administrative side. They can do biopsychosocial assessments. I mentioned the different variations of counseling and mediation and small group therapy. And then you have the community collaboration, outreach, and referrals that they can make, you know, and their participation in special ed meetings, you know, coordinating services, behavioral intervention plan involvement, working on developmental histories, and again, staff development for educators. You know, and they really are that advocate, that collaborator, you know, prevention aspects of this, working on multidisciplinary teams. And, you know, all of those things that they're capable of doing is important. And, you know, when it comes to the budget, we're, you know, on the city side, we are fully funding the school resource officers. Over the last couple of years, trying to track down those numbers, I've been told 800,000. I've been told 1.2. Last year in the budget, I was provided documentation that on an average, those school resource officers make $140,000 a year. You know, and when we were hearing earlier about, you know, again, coming back and really trying to focus, and again, that's our budget, right? Our 1.2 million or 800,000. You know, that could account for, based on the numbers we were given for 4 new social workers or 6 and 4 or 6 new nurses, you know, you could get 10 to 16 folks in those positions. You know, and we know that social workers can be police officers. You can be a police officer and take the exam. We know that police officers can't, however, based on all the aforementioned I just talked about, be social workers. And we are constantly asking our law enforcement to do so much, you know, and to do everything, nurse, father, brother, mentor, everything. And, you know, we have some folks that do a great job of it. That being said, you know, the evidence-based research is also clear. It's clear that in regards to school safety, research shows that more school social workers, more adjustment counselors, nurses, psychologists, clinical support minimize threats and have a positive impact. One of the concerns that folks always talk about when we talk about efficacy of school resource officers is the concern around, you know, mass shootings. And, you know, what folks always are reminded of is that in those situations, the majority of the time, the individuals who perpetrate those ungodly acts have slipped through the cracks. They've had numerous red flags, clinical indicators that folks were never able to, you know, really get to, but really conflating, trying to conflate the two positions is often misleading. I'm not suggesting anyone's doing that. I'm just saying I think the public does that. And sometimes we do as well. But you know, we have new legislation related to things like maintaining lists of potential or suspected gang members and who you share that with. So things are changing. We have a city that voted to remove the police resource officers. We've heard today about really some of the callers in talking about, really supporting our educators in the best way possible. And I'm really interested to hear from the administration what data and evidence-based research that y'all consult with to determine the efficacy of these folks. And I know that there's, folks will say, well, the numbers are down since we've had school resource officers. We also know we've had school resource officers removed at North High. We know that we don't have them in some of our other schools. They're not at the alternative schools in any standard way where they're there all day, and those are the populations that folks believe and have determined are most challenged and most concerning. But they do have a number of clinicians assigned over there in smaller class sizes, which we can't control. But really want to hear a bit about the efficacy as we look at our budget on the city side moving forward. Through the chair.
So let me just paraphrase, make sure I'm understanding what, can you hear me?
The question, the question is the efficacy of the school resource officers.
Right.
What evidence-based research can you present to us?
I got that.
Okay.
I was just going to ask you about, with efficacy, what are you looking for on that? The future of them, or?
I'm just looking at, on our side, on the city side, we fund them fully, and as a counselor,
yes.
I'm interested to hear, the evidence-based research that you have to kind of share with us around the efficacy of school resource officers, right. Separate and distinct from the statistical quantification that you have in terms of numbers of responses, the rest of like that. That's a secondary question. My first question is if you could kind of share your understanding of the efficacy of social workers, school resource officers based on research.
So the research, isn't specific, obviously, to SROs in Worcester, Massachusetts. And our data shows that it's been very successful. I know that you didn't want me to mention that because you wanted research, but there's been no research in Worcester, Massachusetts regarding the SROs. Often we do our research on what's successful, we base it on data. We do that with everything. We, pick a reading program, we test kids, we see if it makes a difference over time, and we can show from the data that we have that it has made a difference. There's been less arrests in schools over time, and there's been less violence in schools. Now, obviously, there's many reasons why there's been less violence in schools. I think the training that staff have received, the number of counselors that, or as you call them social workers, we call them school adjustment counselors, the support programs that we have developed in schools, all of those have come together to result in, less violence and less kids arrested in schools. Also, the training for principals regarding that. And I think the laws that changed that made it very clear, what you can arrest students for and what you cannot also has effect on the data that we have. The data we have, ethnographic data, which is conversations with staff members and conversation with students. Now, of course, this is all prior to George Floyd, right? I'm not sure where our kids are now, what their thought process is in the high schools now regarding police, because we really haven't had that opportunity to have those conversations with students in school with the SRO there at this time. But prior to that, some students that have spoken about police officer SROs not being successful in schools, they weren't even talking about the SROs. They were talking about the guard that we also have in our schools. So we have guards at the beginning. We go into schools, there's a guard there that makes sure you sign in. On several conversations that students spoke to in public forums, they weren't even talking about the SRO. They were talking about the guard that was in the school. So not sure if all students know there's a difference between the guard and the SRO. So the SRO is well trained by the Worcester Public Police Department, and the guards are hired from a whole totally different source. Of course, they're also trained, but they are not as well trained as our police officers. And, my conversations over the years that I've been a principal at South High School for 38 years, when the SROs came in the building, relationships got stronger, and students would talk to them, and many students wanted to become police officers. Again, I have to say, I don't know where our students are right now and their thought process with that. So at this point, we do have the SROs back in our buildings. It's a little different than it was before because they're also assigned to also in the car visit some elementary schools, but they are back in our schools, and the kids that are back in, which are not full 1,400 kids in a building, have been happy to have that conversation if they have the same SRO in their school as when pre-COVID. So my experience has been very positive with that, both as a principal, a teacher, assistant principal. I have lived through no SROs to SROs in cars outside to SROs in the building. And I have to say they make a positive difference to the structure and safety in a school. So I don't know, I know there's lots of research about it, and there have been some teachers who have said that they don't want the SROs in schools, but then there have been many more that said they do. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate your response, your candid response. I will just say that, I don't think that I heard how it's parsed out that the school resource officers, have a causal relationship with the reduction in discipline or arrests. I know that you mentioned relationships, and as I indicated earlier, social workers can be police officers. Police officers cannot be qualified to be social workers. And relationship building is absolutely important. That clinical bond, that attachment goes a long way. And the research shows that that's what has a significant impact on school safety and on dysregulated children and trauma. That being said, I'll just say that, I know that, again, we've had some challenges with disproportionate discipline in our public schools, concerns from the Black and brown communities as it relates to that, and that's something that the administration has been working on for quite some time. And when I look at budgets, when it comes before me, and it come before me shortly, May or June, I look for, again, the values hidden in there. And, again, I think that the administration has been conscious of social emotional learning and serious about it. We could use more of everything, right, everywhere in the schools, including our social workers, our adjustment counselors, wraparound nurses, wraparound services, nurses or coordinators, psychologists, et cetera. But that being said, things like disproportionate discipline and the like would have a significant impact here as it relates to that. So just wanted to say that, and I certainly, when you take a look at, George Floyd situation that you talked about that has really, really changed the world. It's shooken up the world, and we are all very conscious of what we do. And on the city side, when I'm justifying, expenditures for various resources, public safety, school safety, and things of the like, I just like to look at numbers, not simply numbers that are, I will call them native numbers or local numbers, but also evidence-based research on the topic on both sides, just for educational purposes. And I will just also ask through the administration, was there any request on the administration side in your budgetary process as it relates to setting aside funding for school resource officers? Has there been was there any at that part of the budget? I didn't see that in there, or at this point, I know we're looking to end school resource officer on the city side, but were you content with for the first half of next year relying on the city to fund that through the chair?
Through the chair, yes, because we have, as you know, I think it was only 125,000, right, that we used to put towards the funding of the SROs. And I believe it was your item that occurred earlier in the year where that we no longer had to pay 125,000, that money was returned to us. So the full $1 million is actually funded directly by the city council. So there was nothing added to our budget from principals or from a district at this time, since our understanding is that we will have SROs until January of 23.
Thank you. And I just had one other question. Do you have an idea with respect to school safety? I know that you guys do have a plan. I had it before in front of me. I know Mr. Pizzella is in charge of that and the like. But I guess my question is, do you have an idea of what the response time is for police officers to your schools? Is it 3 minutes? Is it 2 minutes when they're not in the building? Because we do have, let's take the schools that have the school resource officers away from this discussion. The other schools, do you have an idea of the response time, average response time to those schools from our police department?
No, and that was actually one of my concerns about it, is because of the response time, more about the active shooter.
Right, I was asking about the ones that, not the schools that they have, like the elementary schools that don't have school resource officers.
No, I would have no idea of what the response time. I believe it depends upon where the cruises are in the city and what construction is going on in the city and how they can get from one end of the city to the other. I mean, I wouldn't have a list of response time. That would be a question, I guess, for the chief of police.
Okay, thank you. My final comment would be, I appreciate your patience through the chair, Mr. Chairman, is, from the research I did, the first female police officer that I found through my research was a social worker. She was a social worker who became a police officer. And I think that's significant. I also agree that, the police officers can have good relationships with children. And I think, they have all sorts of ways to do that. And there's sometimes they're not so good. And I think, I think the purpose of this discussion is for us to really have an open, honest, non-siloed discussion. So I appreciate your patience. And that being said, the first policewoman that I found in my research was a social worker. And again, social workers can be qualified to be police officers based on their education and training, not vice versa. So, I really appreciate the dialogue. I'll defer to my colleagues, and I appreciate, you know, the temperate responses, you know, from the administration rather than, you know, trying to sensationalize. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor King. Councilor Rosen?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll also save my comments. As we've discussed, there was a vote taken by the city council in reference to the manager's recommendation. So from my perspective, the issue was resolved on a 6-5 vote. There's obviously a lot of passion on both sides of this issue. There's anticipated to be other ideas coming forward on how to substitute what formerly were SRO offices in schools, and I would you know, wait for that time to sort of comment further. I would expect that there would be ample opportunity either in this committee or in public safety or other committees to discuss those changes at that time. Councilor King, did you have something else you wanted to mention?
No, I just wanted to file it, that's all. I just wanted to
that's
make
fine.
sure that we
Let me
filed
just see
it.
if, thank you.
Okay.
Let me just see if Chairman Foley, does anybody on your committee have any questions or comments on this issue?
I think we're good, Mr. Chair.
So Councilor King would have a motion to
Yes, I
file,
like-
which I would second.
Yep, I'd like to file it, Mr. Chairman, and again, we do still have to allocate monies in this budget if we want to carry it through the end of the calendar year. Thank you.
Councilor King?
Yes.
Just procedural, I missed what Councilor King said. This is just a motion to file, right?
That's correct, yep.
Yes.
Yes, so Councilor King, Councilor Rosen, and
Yes.
Councilor Bergman.
Excuse me, the last agenda item is item 4C, order of City Councilor Gary Rosen, Councilor Christian E. King, Councilor Soraya Rivera, Councilor Sean M. Rose, Councilor Kathleen M. Toomey request City Council Standing Committee on Education recommend ways in which the city side government or city side of government, our local colleges and nonprofit agencies, amongst others, can promote and encourage civic engagement and education for city youth. This has always been something that I've found to be a challenge when we go to Veterans Day events and other type of civic events. And I'm always hopeful to see a larger representation from our youth. I suppose every generation probably says that about the generation after them, but I can remember in my younger days that was, you know, a real big deal. And I'm sure the generation before me thought even more about the participation. So, and I know Superintendent Bennett and I have spoken about this. There's been other items on before as far as how to attract more attention and more interest in our youth. I know Senator Chandler had an item that was passed in the state legislature regarding some more civic-related activities in our educational package. But through the to the superintendent, any thoughts or ideas beyond what you've already expressed on ways we could try to encourage our youth to be more engaged in civic education?
Through the chair, so actually, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed has actually really helped out on this issue. There is required civic projects now due in 8th grade, and then also another project due by the time that you graduate from high school. So I think getting kids involved in that, they'll end up loving the fact that they feel like they can make a difference. They got involved in a civic activity in our community, and that will carry on. Yeah. So, and you know, there's always, on any scholarship form that you fill out, or when you're applying to college, there's always a section on service community, right? And so as we get more and more students involved with applications for college and filling out scholarship forms, I think that part about increasing civic pride will also become more.
Also to the superintendent, sometimes pre-COVID, there was a great program through Preservation Worcester, which I'm sure you're familiar with and participated in, and that was to bring some of the youth into City Hall and give them what we'd call a mock city council meeting. And I was often fortunate to participate in those. Councilor King, were you able to participate in those yet? Or
Only once.
And Council Rose, well, hopefully there'll be more. Council Rosen, I know, participated in them, and everybody did it differently, but I always asked the students for the public schools before we did the mock city council meeting the following question: how many of you think you might someday want to be a city councilor? And then I would ask them after the mock meeting, how many of you still want to be a city councilor, or if you said you didn't, might now want to be? And I could tell you that usually the first response before we started the mock city council meeting was very few wanted to have any involvement in city government. But then after they got into a spirited debate and they got to vote on an item, they got to debate it first, overwhelming majority had kind of changed their mind. So to me, it always left me with something I always assumed, which is if you can participate in something, you can start to appreciate it more. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts or comments on, are there ways that we can get our students to participate more in those types of activities where they get educated about city government, and they let's face it, they're going to be the leaders in the future. For those of us who think we're going to be in office forever, we're not. And we need those folks to be enthusiastic and motivated, and they're going to lead us. So that's my question. How do we do that? I know it's not an easy answer.
One of the things that we do every year, of course, now with COVID, I think it's virtual, but is going down for Government Day at the State House. The students love that. There is also next to the Kennedy Library, there is the Kennedy Center down in Boston. We do try to take students there. There are many opportunities they offer to go there and debate, and the students actually get to, they give them roles like, you're the senator, you're the representative, and they get to debate different problems. I think as often as we can have students get involved in government. Like, I think the idea that the school committee has, where there are student representatives that sit on the school committee and have voice, is also a good idea. Maybe the city council should have that opportunity for our students also, because they actually get to feel what it's like to make decisions that impact what's happening in our city. So I would think that opportunities like that, to promote having mock trials, to have mock opportunities in the city council chamber, as well as the school committee. Many of our students have gone on to go into office since they've, maybe not public office, but some have, gone on to be, well, I guess it is a public office, assistant DAs, right, have gone on to have jobs where they still commit themselves to community service and look for businesses that actually provide community service as part of what they allow them to do on the job. So I think, partnering kids with companies that promote community service, as well as these opportunities of mock meetings, if we could provide more of them, our students would really benefit from it.
Thank you, Superintendent. Councilor King?
Yes, just again, I just think this is significantly important. I appreciate the order. I believe I signed on to it. We've heard the mantra over the years and the push for, civics being taught in our public schools. And now more than ever, I think representative and inclusive government is important. You look at our city council. We have the most diverse city council ever. We have the most women currently serving at the same time, the most people of color. We have a bunch of different faiths, ethnicities. And it's important, again, that folks, that young people can see it to be it, right, as they learn about it. And similarly for the school committee, diverse body, and we have a superintendent who's a woman. That stuff's important. And, the more we can teach civics and we can emphasize and impress upon young people what their involvement can be and what civics is, what government is and isn't and shouldn't be, I think it goes a long way. And I think, we've heard in the I guess the sphere of the media, depending on what channel it's on, a whole lot of misinformation and folks having their own definitions of things. And if we can educate right here in the city of Worcester, coupled with city side and the school committee side and both administrations, I think it'll do a world of service for our young people. So thank you for your efforts. I know a lot of this is on the agenda of our colleagues on the other side, on the school committee and the administration, but appreciate the order, and I really love this committee, and I love the opportunity to interface with you folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor King. Councilor Rosen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I finish up my final 8 months of city council service and also elective office in the city of Worcester, I've already started talking to former members of the city council and of the Worcester School Committee. Get ready, Mr. Foley, to work on a project starting next year, maybe next spring, to promote civic education here in the city of Worcester. So there's already some good ideas out there, and I think you're going to hear a lot of it, after the first of the year. I know there's some very good people, former school committee members and city councilors, who are ready to get involved, willing to get involved, and really want to help our students out there. So more is on the horizon. You'll hear a lot more, and I'll be in touch with you, Mr. Foley, and certainly Mr. Monfredo. Thank you.
I get the sense from Councilor Rose it's going to be some sort of retirement club, and before you know, you're going to be voting on who's going to be president of it, and you're back into politics again. But
That wasn't the plan.
Chairman Foley, any thoughts or questions on this item?
No, I think, as Councilor King said, it's certainly in the forefront of all of us, and we've been talking about this, and particularly given what's happened this past year in this country and some of the tensions, the conflicts, and that's really tearing our country apart. It's critically important that our students know about the foundation of the country and how we come together and how we discuss items and move forward. So
Yep. No, I agree. And it's challenging as it is for all of us to lead by example. It needs to start with us in elected office, too, to show that. But I appreciate these committee meetings as well. As Councilor King said, it's a lot of education for us on the city council side. I hope you guys get something out of it education-wise from us on the city side. I know the hour's late. I know we haven't met in a while. I'm hoping that we will be able to meet again in the near future on other issues and items. And I have nothing further on our agenda. And Chairman Foley, anything on yours?
No, just appreciate the chance to help educate each other and keep us moving forward as one city.
Same here. Everybody stay healthy. Well, I think I have to gavel us out. Is there a motion to end the meeting, Mr. Pottle?
Mr. Chairman, we could do a motion to end the meeting, and maybe collectively would we be filing this
Yes,
order?
this is a motion to file as well. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. So we'll have Councilor King,
Yes.
Councilor Rosen,
Yes.
and Chairperson Councilor Bergman.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. And then a motion to adjourn our committee. Dr. Friel?
Chairman Foley,
Yes?
Vice Chairman McCullough,
Yes.
and Ms. Biancaria.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
See you all soon.